And we are live. How is it going?
Yo, let's go. Can you hear me all right, Cap?
Yes, with a super secret takeover from Drive Time Movie Night on Library of Mass Destruction, because Hudson had an emergency, and I was not willing to let that forestall the inevitable, the continuation of our reading of Aberration in the Heartland of the Real by Wendy Painting Phd. Joining us tonight in Hudson's absence is, of course, my co-host on Drive Time Movie Night, Mike of Pole, and the inimitable Christopher Sandbatch.
Dude, Hudson messaged me like 20 minutes ago, and he was like, I peed my pants in the Walmart, and I don't know what to do, but I didn't think it was that serious.
He peed his pants in the Walmart, guys. It's so true. He didn't disclose that to me.
You peed his pants in the
I
Walmart?
peed his pants. I peed Hudson's pants.
That's unfortunate. That's a real predicament.
I've canceled on him at the last with 10 minutes to Showtime 3 times. So I was like, yeah, I can do this for my editor. I can do this.
I have never and would never cancel anything. I would just take the L. But that's just me. And sorry for being late. I appreciate everyone sticking around and talking about Battlefield 5 and Ace Combat. Great, wonderful chat replay that we're going to have. So, gentlemen, you haven't been here before. In fact, no one other than Hudson has ever been here before. So, I'm gonna run down what we're doing here. I am going to read Aberration in the Heartland of the Real at both of you, and you're going to provide color commentary.
Papa,
now,
read me a story.
It's a read along. We're reading the whole goddamn book, and we're quite a ways through. To catch you up, we just went through a little coverage of Timothy McVeigh's time spooking around Area 51, and now we're going to get through his experience in and around Waco, Texas. So, yeah. Do you guys have anything to say or anything to shill before we get started?
No, I'm ready for the story. I'm ready.
I was in Waco, Texas earlier today.
Today, but not in and around the events where Lon Horiuchi got a few more notches on his rifle.
I mean, it's what's interesting about Waco is that it's a town that it's actually larger now than you probably think it is, because it's catching a lot of overflow from Dallas and areas like that. But it's a place where the only thing that exists is Baylor University, and then the legend of all the spooky stuff that's gone down there. So anywhere you are in Waco, you're very close to it.
Glowing and spooky, even.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're just going to get started in that case, and we'll start on McVeigh's imperceptibly binding chains. So, part 1, Tale of the Dastardly Doppelgangers and the Manchurian Terrorist. I almost did the thumbnail with Timothy McVeigh wearing a rice paddy hat, but I figured the David Koresh one was a little more on point. If the world is where we hide from ourselves, what do we do when the world is no longer accessible? We invent a false name, invent a destiny, purchase a firearm through the mail. CIA agent and black ops fella Will Everett from Don DeLillo's Libra, 1988. A real quote. We found out in the U.S. Aid files that Don DeLillo was paid to write Libra using nothing but actual CIA documents. So
amazing.
It is the most accurate testimony. The apparatus is precisely what we can't see or name. We can't measure it, gentlemen, or take its photograph. It is the mystery we can't get hold of, the plot we can't uncover. This doesn't mean there are no plotters. Paranoid radio talk show host Weird Beard DeLillo, Libra, 1988, also real, but based on a latter-day Art Bell, and Ryan Gosling is calling me out for my proclivities.
Did you see Art Bell has a biopic coming?
I did, yeah, with Paul Giamatti.
Yeah, I was like, biopics are usually so terrible that I was like dismayed. But then I saw Paul Giamatti, and I was like, oh man,
It's gonna yeah, like Paul Giamatti's good. He's good in weird roles, and there may be none weirder than Art Bell biopic. Although, you know, it's been a weird couple of years for biopics, hasn't it? You know, what was that one that just came out, Better Man, that was apparently really good and nobody saw because no one knew who the fuck it was about.
Is it even a biopic then, or is it just a movie?
I mean, yeah, I guess there's the what was that one that what was that one that John C. Reilly did? It was a phony biopic.
Walk Hard.
Walk Hard. Yeah. Yep. The mockumentary biopic. Mike, we could do a biopic double feature.
We absolutely could.
We absolutely could. All right. What follows is an amalgamation of conflicting narratives whose internal contradictions, points of intersection, and digression, once identified, confound any particular version, reveal critical gaps in and between them, clear a path for new interpretive possibilities, and demonstrate the historical quandary left in McVeigh's wake. On the other hand, while not attempting to argue any one particular theory of the case, by pitting all the narratives about McVeigh and the bombing against each other and highlighting certain aspects of each, I do hope to undermine any version that insultingly argues that the reality of either can be understood by a few simple truths. Sandbatch, I know that you have not read Aberration in the Heartland of the Real.
Look, I just wanted to point out this sounds like the beginning of a schizo ecologica post. It's like, no matter how simple you think this story is, I'm going to complicate it until it no longer makes any sense.
So I realize that you have perfectly clocked Wendy Painting, despite having not read this book.
I wonder if she was cute.
Well, she's still alive. And she's on Twitter, and you can follow her.
Oh, man,
I believe her @ is Bird Wendy.
All right, y'all keep going.
Finding it. All right. Leaving Buffalo, late 1992 to early 1993. While in the Army, Timothy McVeigh, the model soldier, visited military doctors and dentists at a startling rate. Shortly before he quit the Army, he confided to his supply sergeant, James Rockwell, his belief that if he had a computer chip in his backside, that the military had done things to him he was unhappy about, and added, "I think they've brainwashed me or injected me with something." Upon returning home, he made regular visits to the Buffalo VA, where, according to statements made to the FBI, military doctors treated him for paranoid schizophrenia, a condition that caused him to black out for long periods of time and left him with a secret life he could not remember. At this time, he expressed his growing concern about the availability of healthcare, medical abuse conspiracies, and the privacy of his personal medical records, the existence or location of which remains undetermined. Yeah.
He's a real Luigi Maggione type character we're getting into.
Well,
okay.
I mean, we are almost certainly going to. Actually, I believe that this chapter does include Major Jolyon West.
Oh man!
Who's Sandbatch?
Oh man!
Is literally MK Ultra, and so yeah. Let's see.
I had never considered a possibility of a McVeigh MK Ultra crossover, but I mean, of course,
you best start believing in it. You're in one.
Yeah. So, Wendy is not cute, but she has a heavy e-girl presence.
She does. She had a very nice thread recently about her deceased cat, and I encourage everyone to give it a like and share your condolences. In his final letter to Steve Hodge before quitting his job and setting off on the road in late 1992, which is a longtime friend of his that he would correspond with at great length and frequency. He would have been an excellent poster. McVeigh said he was leaving for an undisclosed location and that this might be their last communication for some time. He told Steve to read 1984 in Brave New World, warning that Big Brother is capable of more than just jamming ham radio frequencies. They will lock you up. He lamented about the long line of dissidents before him that had been diagnosed as mentally ill and even involuntarily hospitalized for failing to fit in with the norm. Someday, McVeigh said, he too might be locked up and labeled schizophrenic or a white racist. He explained that schizophrenia and other mental illnesses are only social construct, sane responses to an insane world, and he was simply a radical political thinker, an extremist in every sense of the word. Excuse me. I should also point out, given his high school sophomore reading list that he recommended to his friend Steve, there was a long section of which he was repeatedly telling Steve to read the Turner Diaries as the greatest book ever written.
This is not entirely out of the ordinary. There was that one UFO guy that the CIA actually was like breaking into his house and moving around stuff in his home in order.
Yeah,
to
we talked about him last time. That poor son of a bitch.
That he is a poor son of a bitch. Rip.
Yes.
But anyway, yeah, I was just gonna make that connection, but it's been made.
Yeah, well, Wendy does leave no stone unturned. She, brevity might be the soul of wit, but thoroughness has its own sort of charm, and she has that in spades. Let's see. He then Jay Ford, friend of the show, treasured mutual. We always have the show now. We always have the show during this time. And until we're done with Aberration in the Heartland of the Real, we're going to have, unfortunately, the same time slot as Pony Express. But
what years this happened, by the way?
This is currently taking place in late 1992 to 1993.
No, in that same year, I should point out, a great man wrote, the word schizophrenia has both the neurotic and schizophrenic usage. On the one hand, condemnation. On the other hand, propagation. There are those who insist on asking stupid questions such as, is this word being used properly? Don't you feel guilty about playing about with so much suffering? You must know that schizophrenics are very sad and wretched people who we should pity.
Deleuze?
No.
Oh, no.
Nick Land.
Oh, there we go.
Wow, very, very early Land. Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Was he even a professor at that point?
Yeah,
that had to be like the first year of CCRU.
I don't know if it was CCRU yet, but he had already become a known entity. And the reason I brought it up is because I am curious because Timothy, it's really interesting whenever you because these guys are writing literal letters to each other. So it's like Xerox schizo posting, but not totally out of the question that either whoever Wendy thinks is running Timothy McVeigh here or Timothy McVeigh himself are aware of Nick Land's existence.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. Let's see here. He then issued similar warnings to others, including his former CalSpan co-worker, Carl LeBron, to whom he claimed someday people would come looking for him, McVeigh, perhaps even people from CalSpan. LeBron said McVeigh was cagey and about where he was going, but did mention he had taken a civilian job painting military vehicles. He told a handful of other individuals that he was leaving town to work in an unspecified but military-related capacity. His attorneys noted the need to make a list of all the people he had said this to. Unknown to them, during this same time, McVeigh told Terry Nichols that while in the Army, he had been recruited to carry out undercover missions. Wendy is just so you guys know, of course, the official narrative is that with a small amount of help from Michael Fortier, Terry Nichols, Timothy McVeigh essentially lone wolf bombed the Alfred Murrah Federal Building.
I have a small question. I'm
yes.
sorry. Is Mr. Steve Hodge, his buddy that he talks to a lot, was he also military?
No, okay. He was just a childhood friend.
Okay.
And he was not in the military. He is not one of the suspected John Doe's number 2, of which there are
several.
The most probable John Doe number 2 is on Twitter. And yeah. And we talked about him last time. But
all right, I'll leave that be then.
Wait, who is he?
I forget his name because I'm a moron.
Okay.
But we could go back. Actually, here, let's just let's search back.
Plays the idiot card on me. I'm collecting schizos for my follower list today, and he was like, "Oh, I'm not going to help you do that."
Sorry, I'm a dumb. Oh, Colburn. There we go.
Colburn.
Stephen Colburn. There we go. Yeah. But yeah, easily the most probable John Doe number 2. In any case, there we go. According to David Paul Hammer, McVeigh said that in late 1992, while still in Buffalo, he received a call from his handler, the Major, who told McVeigh to get his affairs in order and be ready to enter the field for several months. McVeigh was
hold on. I have to interrupt you. This guy was already following me.
Classic. Classic Sandbatch. Yeah. So anyway, he has an excellent history that is very interesting. But that may be the best reveal on this show.
This is making me awfully cagey because, I feel like is God an FBI agent and he divine intervention Sandbatch into my life to be my handler? This has been Micah Paul's theme all day, is that I am literally a fucking glowy, and like
this is why
I don't know enough to say I'm not.
This is why you're so hand to mouth. This is why you're so hand to mouth, because USAID got cut off. Is no visible means of support. So we'll find out that Sandbatch was a code name once they get into once Tulsi Gabbard gets put in as the director of national intelligence.
Sandbatch was John Doe number 3, the one nobody knows about yet.
So I'm terrified to tell you it was John Doe number 7. Yeah, they had enough to field a convincing hockey team.
Hell yeah.
So let's see. According to David Paul Hammer, McVeigh said that in late 1992, while still in Buffalo, he received a call from his handler, the Major, who told McVeigh to get his affairs in order and be ready to enter the field for several months. McVeigh was then drilled extensively for days about his knowledge of well-known and obscure figures in the extreme right-wing anti-government movement, their rhetoric, and his ability to use it convincingly. After proving his skills, McVeigh was instructed to travel the gun show circuit and immerse, inform on, and assess the actions of those in the right-wing anti-government movement. While he would have only minimal contact with his handlers during this time, McVeigh was to report his progress by leaving voicemails at a secured telephone number given to him by the Major. Classic spook shit, right? Nowadays it's I don't know how they would do it. Sandbatch, do you have any insight into what the protocols would be for for side channels and dead drops?
No, not I do in fact have a dead drop, but it's a USB stick that like I have to hit reset on every couple of days. But the fascinating, I am like, I don't know if Mike was, but you and I were both alive and at least fairly sentient during, like, at least able to like remember going to Taco Bell and shit like this during this period. Yeah. And like I have like very early memories of like being dragged to like early 90s gun shows where you could get like those, what are those old Soviet semi-auto rifles? You could get them by like the pallet for like
SKS.
Yeah, you can get like an SKS for like $10 and it comes with like 3 copies of the Turner Diaries and like 5 Confederate flags. You know, like it's
you gotta wrap them up. You gotta wrap the SKS up in something.
Yeah. It's a fascinating like sort of context. I wonder if has Willis Carto turned up at all in this in any of these?
I do not recall Willis Carto. Who is that?
Willis Carto was the man. Who was that guy Paul Fahrenheit loves so fucking much? That queer fascist theorist. But Willis Carto was a character.
Does not narrow it down.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. But like Willis Carto was one of these, but he's like the central node that almost all of the American hard American right between say 1945 and 2005 or so like run through. Like we used to call these people white nationalists 1.0s, and like all of these like really like hard bitten characters that are like living on compounds in like Oklahoma and shit like that. But they also have like master's theses from Harvard and that sort of thing. And like Willis Carto was like the central node in their network.
It seems like it might be he might be associated with like Elohim City, which has come up several times, and I believe McVeigh's time there was after Waco, so we'll probably if we do encounter him, it'll probably be there. Yeah. Let's see. McVeigh's old Army buddy, Terry Nichols, would ultimately be tried in a federal and state court for his participation in the bombing. After the conclusion of his state trial, when he could no longer be tried again, Nichols, who had never spoke publicly about his knowledge of the bombing, began to tell his story. He said that during a visit with McVeigh in December 1992, McVeigh told him that, while in the Army, he had been recruited to carry out undercover missions. He did not say who recruited him or specify the nature of his mission. McVeigh did say, however, that he was to begin making contacts with a network of people after the first of the year, and that he was to take no action in furtherance of this mission until called upon, and would soon be making his first contact down south. It was not innuendo. Although the existence of the FBI's PatCon operation remained unknown for another 15 years until 2007, in August 1992, on the heels of Ruby Ridge, the focus of PatCon's extensive fact-finding mission was reauthorized and expanded. Rather than seeking incriminating information about any one particular individual for the purposes of criminal prosecution, operatives were now to gather information concerning a nationwide alliance of white supremacist groups being formed to fight the U.S. government. Obviously, all of this stuff still goes on. I mean, maybe it doesn't right now. If it was ever safe to be a sensible centrist, then it's right now. But you've got to imagine that at one point we went through this and it was like the Aryan nations was something like 1/3 informants.
Yeah, no, okay. Well, hold on. That Oath Keepers guy broke above the waves a couple of days ago. He got banned from entering Washington D.C. or something like that. But I think he's the only one that's really around. I've been around I heard somebody in a chat the other day refer to alt-right 1.0, and I'm like, fuck. But I was like around long enough ago that a lot of these guys that were like, and it's like Elohim City is a Christian identity movement. Like a lot of those guys were still present. And of course my association was the South. And so I had to deal with the League of the South occasionally. And I would in fact encounter some of these dudes IRL. Like one guy, and a lot of them, like one guy he was in the Army and he got arrested because he broke into the base he was serving on one night and stole a fucking piece of heavy artillery and tried to sell it on the black market. This is the kind of shit these guys, but that's the kind of, it's like so strange that it has to glow a little bit,
Right.
But I don't know that there's much of a militia, like the alt-right itself kind of took all of the wind out of the sails of the real militia. There is one that's kind of like a very secretive group called the Edelweiss Society, and then they're a little bit militia-esque.
I mean, there's still look. What was it? The Bundy occupation of the Bureau of Land Management. I mean, that happened in 2014, right?
Yeah,
that was not that long ago. I mean, it was
no, but it's
a decade, but
it's like in the next 2 years, like groups like Faith and Heritage and everything like that. And then what was that? Whatever the damn chat, Stormfront or whatever. Like Stormfront was like you come out of the militia movement, you get an account on Stormfront, and then you like transpose directly into the very early E-Right. And that's like that. It was like a filter sieve. Like you went, like the IRL footprint almost went to nothing from militia movements over the course of. Because I mean I know this because I was discussed in fucking magazines as like one of these characters that was like involved in like the digital transition of the far right and that sort of thing. God, this episode's getting too close to this. It's getting too close to where I live.
Of course, nowadays the transition of the far right occurs at the Manhattan Institute.
Right.
But one thing I probably want to note here is that probably what's going on now is much more soft touch, nudge theory, psychological operations, because there's not, the part of the issue of everything transitioning into a digital domain, because that's like, we're in this transitory state where everything kind of is breathed into existence through like the ecstasy of communication, a la Baudrillard, stuff like that.
Is that liminal, you goddamn Zoomer?
It's a little bit liminal. No, but
ecstasy of communication.
Yeah.
I'm going to translate that one into Latin and send it to an e-girl right now.
Anyway, but
you're going to ruin her chair, Sandbatch.
you got to imagine that there's no PatCon dudes like circling the wagons around militias, because I think, to your point, they kind of don't exist anymore, or the amount of people that are needed to monitor such things doesn't justify a very large budget, I would imagine.
Well, what's interesting is that actually, if anything, the militia movement exists kind of on the left now, like the John Brown gun clubs and like all these those Antifa cells that are holed up in Middle Tennessee, like fuck.
We have them.
I went to a John Brown gun club thing one time, and half the fucking people there were talking about shooting up churches, and the other half were like, I really want to be part of this, but I don't like guns, and but I have a crossbow. It's like, okay, retards.
Yeah, that's true. Like the OG militia movement had like large bottles of Vicodin and literal artillery pieces. Like it's true. Like the scale is, I mean, it's like one of the things that, like, just to contextualize in case people haven't realized this, the 90s were a much darker decade in general than most of us, even those of us who remember it, can sort of.
Goths were real then.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the militia movement actually was fucking huge. And it was every bit as much of like a meme among the chattering classes as we are now. Like it was like they were the boogeyman that was under every bed.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, a lot of what came out of, I mean, you could draw a straight line between the current surveillance state and like fear in 1993 of the militia movement. Essentially, people say that the old United States died on 9/11. It died at Ruby Ridge.
Yeah.
But
that's true.
Yeah, the worst bureaucrat in American history is Janet Reno. The most incompetent and destructive bureaucrat in American history is Janet Reno.
She wasn't cute either.
Did not get fired. Very mad. El Reno was not a looker. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they kept her around because they needed an upper level female, and Janet was the only one who was safe from Bill. So
the Clintons' presence and the fact that this happened during the Clinton administration is also significant, because like Bill Clinton is from Hope, Arkansas, which is the kind of place these militia guys would hang out. I don't know if you've ever been to Western.
Yeah,
Arkansas.
he was the last the last fucking Democrat to carry that vote.
Right. And he was all, well, yeah. Was he? Yeah, he was. But he was also like, over the course of his time in Arkansas, because my family's from Northeast Arkansas, so I'm a little inside baseball here. But like the Clintons were like sort of also suspected of kind of using militia movements to when they were the governors of whenever Bill Clinton was the governor of Arkansas, they have all these scandals like the Whitewater scandal and everything like that.
Yeah,
all this dark money moving around, and the militia movements were suspected to be involved in that. And so Clinton also had a special reason to look like he was clamping down because he had all these scandals in his past that were somewhat affiliated. So that sort of the Clintons were willing to pile on logs on this fire and really demonize them.
Yep. Well, let's see here. Whether internal or external, actual or imaginary, the decision to leave was based on overwhelming and powerful forces, so much so that it almost seemed he had no choice in the matter. His friend and former co-worker at Burns, Andrea Augustine, said the last time she saw him, she could tell he wanted to stay, and he almost did. But then he kept saying, "You don't understand. I really have to go." He just kept saying it. That's just like McVeigh has all of these. It's possible he never fucked a bitch. It's also possible that he fucked every bitch. And Andrea Augustine was pretty clearly his one-itis from other stories. So he was probably playing the too cool action fellow with her.
Maybe lived in a superposition of both having all the bitches and no bitches. Very valid possibility there.
There's in letters to Steve when he was in the military, he said that he was fucking all of his friends' wives. But no one knew him to ever be with a woman, except it is confirmed that he fucked Michael Fortier's wife. And both of them went to prison to protect him. So in terms of seeing you from across the bar and liking your vibe, he clearly checked that box with the Fortiers at the very least. So, also, yeah, Ryan Gosling and I remember reading that after the affair, Hillary didn't speak to Bill for 7 months until a phone call where she begged him to begin bombing Serbia. Yeah, it is possible that Slobodan Milosevic fell because Bill needed to get back in Hillary's good graces.
Dude, do you want me to make my situation worse now?
Yes, always.
So the guy that I worked for in Washington D.C. was the dude who got sent to negotiate with Slobodan Milosevic.
I mean, yeah. Milosevic definitely lost that. So the guy you worked for definitely had the chops. Milosevic ended up dying in The Hague, didn't he?
Yeah, he was also the guy that crushed the air traffic controllers strike for Reagan in '83 or some shit like that. I can't remember all of the stories, but yeah. And he also was my connection to Willis Carto, who absolutely was involved in Elham City.
Wonderful. God. From the time he left New York in January 1993 until the summer of 1993, McVeigh's activities are difficult to trace due to a lack of documentation in some instances and an overwhelming but conflicting amount in others. Stickney described this period as the lost days. Stickney, one of McVeigh's biographers. While largely untraceable, McVeigh's life turned into what could only be called a lost crusade. But it was during this odyssey of uncertainty that he became seriously involved in a dangerous world. Whether of his own volition or under instructions, McVeigh now began his long, arduous descent into the paramilitary underworld of conspiracy theorists, anti-Semites, racists, militias, tax protesters, Second Amendment advocates, and others who mobilized in the shadow of the looming Brady Bill. At this point, wrote Stickney, McVeigh believed in Big Brother was watching him. The government had become the enemy and was now keeping tabs on him, and he believed a black car was following him when he went out driving. McVeigh began leading a double life and took measures to ensure that it remained well hidden. He stayed on the move, traveling the country, rented a number of mailboxes in various states under a number of assumed names, took to using several aliases, and began using a calling card in the name of Daryl Bridges to communicate. Later, Michael Fortier's mother, Irene, would tell CNN that Timothy McVeigh had lived 2 lives and the truth was going to come out. It did not.
It did not.
It did not. Unless that would be this book. You know, this is a real chonker, of a work. It's something like 780 pages, and they are dense ones. And Wendy has said that she is working on a sequel. So
I immediately got the vibe from whenever I looked at her picture. I was like, I could see her like working on this night after night by the light of her fucking aquarium.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Oh yeah. No, she's read absolutely everything that she possibly could on this. Various people later reported that from this time until the day of the bombing, they had known the man they saw in the televised perp walk, not as Timothy McVeigh, but as alternately, and you are going to fucking love these, Chuck, Daryl Bridges, Steve Murphy, Robert Kling, born April 19th, 1972, Mike Havens, Mike Foley, Sergeant Mack, Sean Rivers, Joe Rivers, David Gilmore, Richard Menton, Tim Tuttle, Tom Tuttle, Terry Tuttle, Jerry Tuttle of the Turtle Club, Tom Sneed, Tim Sneed, Sneed mentioned. Yes. The Sneed of the Eaton Seed. That's right. Tim McEgee, Tim McNay, Tim McVeigh, which is not like it's just spelled different. It's spelled McVey. I'm pretty sure that person,
that'll throw people off then.
I'm pretty sure that person just misunderstood what he said.
Yeah.
Tim Johnson and Timmy, which is what we know him as, among other names. He kept multiple driver's licenses and alternate license plates. Phone records indicate that during this time, somebody used his Daryl Bridges calling card to place 685 calls to individuals and businesses throughout the country. Shortly after leaving Western New York, McVeigh sent his sister an article about 51-year-old retired Sergeant Major Lawrence Friedman, a former Green Beret, who had died in Somalia the previous December, reportedly from an exploding anti-tank mine. Local obituaries, he must have been a fat one. Local obituaries did not print notices of his death, and the only thing the Pentagon had to say was that Friedman, a civilian employee of the U.S. government, died in Somalia during a classified mission. Brigadier General Richard Potter Jr., an old friend of Friedman's and deputy commander of the Army Special Operations Command, told reporters the record will not reflect the many operations he participated in. Why would it's a little weird that she mentions local obituaries did not mention it. Like the what is the paper of record in Somalia? You know, like you think they're regularly reporting on American special operators dying?
Yeah, there's nothing over there.
Yeah, there's nothing there.
There's nothing. There's still nothing there.
There's like one Somalian who's still stuck over there, who's like 2 standard deviations above the average, and he's desperately trying to start a newspaper because he wants to civilize his country, and the best he can do is a Substack.
Yeah,
that's what's happening.
Well, if you do put it on paper, people start using it to light fires and that sort of thing.
That's right.
Well, considering, and this is in 1993, correct?
Correct.
So, yeah, they had a civil war in 1991.
Yeah, this is the whole Black Hawk Down thing.
Oh, okay, Roger. Yeah, I'm retarded. Okay, carry on.
Ryan Gosling Anon. Would Sneed's establishment sell fertilizer? And if not, would the previous owner of the establishment trade in such goods? I don't know if I believe he bought it from from a Charles, and it went by some diminutive of that name, and I think that I think most likely he would have sold fertilizer. Now the question is how much of that fertilizer would fit in the cubic volume of the back of a Ryder truck, and we have to get to the end of the book to find out. Although Stephen Colburn could probably tell you right off the top of his head, because his specialty was building ammonium nitrate bombs just for fun. Let's see here. Friedman's father said he was a secret to all of us. Soon, those who knew Friedman began to understand the bigger picture about the secret life of the man they thought they knew. Friedman died as he had lived, fast, hard, and discreetly. It's a weird thing to say about somebody. It turned out that Friedman was a consummate soldier, Special Forces medic in Vietnam, and survivor of a failed Delta Force rescue mission during the 1979-80 Iran hostage crisis, where 8 of his fellow elite super soldiers died. He had also been among the first to train the Delta Force anti-terrorist unit at the JFK Special Warfare Center in Fort Bragg. As an expert sniper, Friedman instructed the Secret Service on presidential convoy procedures. After retiring in 1990, he began 2 years of special assignments, sometimes disappearing for weeks at a time into the military underworld of the Delta Force, which included covert assignments in North and Central America, the Middle East, Bosnia, and Africa. The Pentagon refused to answer the elder Friedman's questions about the circumstances surrounding the death of his son. Friedman, McVeigh told his sister, was the first known casualty of U.S. covert operations in Somalia. Throughout the next 2 years, McVeigh sent his sister news clippings about a number of political corruption scandals, many involving clandestine operations similar to those he said he learned about during the Special Forces tryout. One about the arrest of 2 brothers who attempted to transport 66 pounds of cocaine on an Air Force plane. Bold choice. One pertained to CIA smuggling of heroin into the U.S. and the explosion of Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie, Scotland. And I feel like I'm probably pronouncing that, even though it's clearly phonetically Lockerbie, it's also Scotland. So it's probably some weird slur of that. Sandbatch, did I mention anything that you have a direct and suspicious connection to in that section?
No, not this time.
Okay. You got a brief for brief.
It's a low energy section.
Low energy section for you. Yeah, I mean, I don't know who the fuck this Friedman guy was, but
I'm also on link. I'm like double duty on LinkedIn doing like opposition research on USAID workers who are attempting to flee to Peru and start a McKinsey Institute-like consulting firm for working directly in overseas countries to address economic, health, security, environmental, business, and other governance needs. Fascinating that the left is fleeing to Latin America.
It's amazing. It's amazing how that pattern happens. But if you're fleeing to South America, you truly have lost. That's my favorite.
It doesn't look good over there. It's not looking good for you at that point.
Yeah, they're gonna get there and they're gonna find a bunch of blue-eyed people who are like, Guten Tag. They'll be like, ah!
Who is Gord Downie?
It's the Gord Downie.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Gordon Downie, Canadian singer, songwriter, and musician. Oh, they're talking about Mike, not me.
Me?
Yeah, it's in the chat. We got Gordon Downie.
Whoa, you got Gord Downie as a guest tonight. Sick. Okay, there we go. I don't know who that is. Does he just sound like one of you?
It must be. Well, we're both from the South, so it could be either of us, actually.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right. Let's see here. Where did I go? All right. McVeigh then made his way to a number of locations of interest, including headquarters of the Militia of Montana, where he was introduced to other visitors, including Aryan Nations members, as a mercenary named Sergeant Mack. He also began making phone calls to other white power movement groups, including a Pennsylvania chapter of the National Alliance. Early on in his travels, in January 1993, while at a gun show in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, he met Roger Moore, not James Bond, a gun dealer who divided his time between Arkansas and southern Florida. McVeigh was selling white power t-shirts and copies of the Turner Diaries, and the two struck up a conversation. No stranger to the extreme right, Moore claimed to have been involved with training anti-Castro Cubans. By the 1970s and 1980s, he was a self-made millionaire, mainly, he said, by building speedboats for government agencies, including the CIA and other elite clientele. Moore ran with the Iran-Contra crowd, think Ali North, had numerous international arms dealing associates, and was in tight with civilian military assistants, a group of CIA-backed mercenaries who, during the late 1980s, were involved in the U.S.'s PATCON operation, although whether as targets, assets, or both is unclear.
So, okay, just so we're clear.
One sec. Like McVeigh, Moore employed numerous aliases, but most people knew him as Bob Miller or Bob Anderson. Moore was a familiar face on the gun show circuit, where he promoted his homemade porn distribution enterprise and mail-order firearms business. Stand-up guy.
So, just to be clear, every single person, save maybe a third of the people that are in the various militias and white nationalist movements and groups, were glowing that this guy ever talked to.
I mean, McVeigh glowed like a motherfucker.
Yeah, no. He glows, and basically everyone he ever talked to glows. Okay.
Yeah, it is just the government spying on itself.
Oh my God.
It's finding the one guy. Like, between the three people who are currently on this show, two of us are glowing.
Can I get a job from, the defectors of U.S. aides that are fleeing to South America to spy on Sandy while he spies on me? Have a real, Mr. and Mrs. Smith situation here. That's really
adorable. That's really cute. I don't know, Sandbatch, are they hiring? Are they putting up calls for applications, or is it just we're fleeing immediately?
I have $1.51 in my bank account. Both Russia and the feds have fucking dried up on me. I need work.
Super chats for Sandbatch. Buy your boy a coffee. It will actually be used for coffee. Do you have a coffee link, Sandbatch?
Yeah, I actually posted it today. It's because I'm laughing, but I'm not in great shape. But it's underneath that Substack. It's in the Substack article I posted today. Which, by the way, I forgot to shill it. That's actually people have been bitching at me to
go
write.
Ahead, just go ahead.
People have been bitching at me to write about Bob Dylan, and I finally did.
Okay, that's it. You just
I don't know how to show myself, but no. Wait, are we gonna get to Elohim City today? I'm
potentially. We're definitely gonna get into Waco on the next page.
Okay, fuck yeah. I feel like we're on a journey to Elohim City right now.
Well, we are. We could go there. It's where the next OGC is being held. That's not true. That's not true.
That is not true.
That is not true.
Wait, no, I have to interrupt again because my one actual IRL encounter. Well, okay, actually there's two, three. Okay, so the guy that I've already mentioned that I work for in Washington D.C., his best friend who ran the Southern Legal Defense Fund out of Black Mountain, North Carolina. So, man, I'm not going to give out his name. But he wrote his master's thesis at the University of Texas on the Waco bombings and attempted to contact Timothy McVeigh. I mean, not Timothy McVeigh, David Koresh to give him legal advice. But he did end up serving in some legal capacity for the defendants in Timothy McVeigh related criminal cases. And literally came home with a war bride from a bride in exchange for services from Elohim City. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Oh my God. Oh, and I see we have salmon fish in the chat. Welcome.
Yeah. We gotta get all the crazies up in here.
Yeah. Let's see here. In the preceding years, Moore himself had been the subject of state and federal investigations on more than one occasion. From 1989 until March 1993, the Arkansas and Oregon State Police, as well as the ATF, FBI, and Department of Defense, would investigate Moore for various infractions, including plans to mail hundreds of pounds of C4 explosives through the mail, sale of government property stolen from military installations. Sandbatch mentioned this already. Including ammunition, intent to sell explosives and bootlegging porn, origins of which are unknown, and the sale of ammunition, grenades, and flares that he again shipped through the mail. Each time an investigation into Moore's activities was begun, it was just as quickly ended, mainly through the request or inaction of the FBI. Close. After the bombing, Moore claimed he was a government informant, although by the looks of it, he was much more than that. According to Terry Nichols, Moore, one of the first contacts in McVeigh's network of friends, helped instruct McVeigh on the ins and outs of the gun show circuit, where he would spin the web of contacts needed to carry out the bombing. Either way, Moore and McVeigh became fast friends. They met up again a couple weeks later, and Moore invited McVeigh to stop by his Arkansas ranch sometime. There were already rumors circulating among the Patriot crowd that the federal government was taking extra legal measures to disarm American citizens. And after April 19th, 1993, the rumors would become self-evident fact. I like how they say extra legal, but it means that it doesn't mean that they're outside the law. It means that they're extremely legal. There's nothing illegal about it. There's so many laws that allow them to do it.
Well, the Brady bill hadn't been passed yet, so I think that's kind of the hang up. I think everyone was getting spooks because you know, in both sense of the words, where because of all of the involvement with like these like spooky ATF people that would come and not do an audit and actually go to your books and look at your 4473s and all that stuff. They would just like hang around you and just in stuff like that. I mean, that's exactly what happened at Waco, you know. So this is like a distortion of what was the legal purview of like ATF agents in the field. So I don't actually disagree with this. I mean, we saw the same thing with Operation Choke Point with Obama. Like, this is kind of like a pattern with the government. Like, Operation Choke Point was where they went to all the banks and said, hey, if you extend lines of credit to anyone who has anything to do with the Second Amendment, we're going to pull your FDIC. And then the banks all said, nope, we're not going to do that. So business is closed. So even though there's like less context here, I think there's absolutely stuff like the ATF field agents doing weird stuff that was extra legal. Incidentally,
and thank you for mentioning that, Mike. But you know, as we are currently in the sort of a legal blitz of the second Trump administration, you know, you could debank every illegal immigrant using an FDIC rule change immediately. You could do it today. It'd be real easy.
I was literally about to be like, my friend was talking about this the other night, and then I realized it was you.
Yeah, it was me. I'm very familiar with real estate and financing laws, and so there are a lot of them that can just get changed at the drop of a hat, and a fair number of them are those industries, you know, while being heavily regulated, are kind of regulated entirely via the agencies. So you know, it's rules rather than actual laws, and so.
Well, we don't have to worry about it.
Salmon
fish just shut welfare down.
Much more effective.
Thanks, salmon fish.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I wish that if you had that light switch in your house, you could have hit it. You could have hit it a little sooner, bud. I mean, I'm just saying.
Now is the time. It was the right time.
And also sloppy Joe Stalin. I don't think it's fair to blame Ross Perot for the Clinton presidency. Although
it's a little bit fair.
I don't know.
What was the alternate? But again, like, what is the alternate? Like, is like again, just everybody's getting so blamey. I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, you don't have Bill Clinton. You got George Herbert Walker Bush instead. Like,
yeah, former head of the CIA. Like, what are you? You know, plausibly still, you know, at the time, plausibly still the head of the CIA, right?
Yeah.
Like, no one is. Former CIA glows more than someone who says, I work at the CIA.
You know, actually, now that I'm considering this, I've spoken too soon. I'm going to go wash my mouth out with soap. Imagine where we would be if Ross Perot won. Think about that.
I don't know, it'd probably be better. I don't know.
Yeah.
Theoretically. Let's see. Nowhere Ham, if you debank the illegals, how do you tax remittances? Yeah, well, so you just have to.
No, it's every at the institutional level. Every Western Union, anything that any transaction out has the automatic tax right there at the institution. Yeah, easy.
Yeah, and if they use crypto or something, well, you're not getting that anyway. So yeah. Let's see. Extra legal, self-evident fact. All right. This began when, in June 1992, the ATF initiated an investigation of a religious sect in Waco, Texas, the Branch Davidians, who lived communally on a plot of land called Mount Carmel. The leader of the sect, David Koresh, often bought semi-automatic weapons at wholesale prices and then sold them for a profit. Questions arose about the legality of these sales. Although they could have asked to inspect his stock of guns, in the words of a later congressional investigative report, before pursuing traditional avenues of investigation, the ATF instead decided to pursue a military-style raid or dynamic entry on Mount Carmel. He did have an FFL, I believe. I believe it was
FFL. He was finishing receiver sets. Everything he did was on the books, officially, on the record, had 4473s for everything he sold. Nothing untoward was happening with it.
It was just the business. Yeah. It was just a regular license. Instead of just, calling and saying, we'd like to look at your records, they decided to roll the door open with a tank.
Before that, and this is what I was alluding to before, is they had dudes move next door and very creepily hang out of the window with binoculars, like quite obvious, like Looney Tunes shit, and then go to some of the services. And David Koresh, being not a retard, said, hey guys, like, I know you guys are feds. It's okay. Did you like the service?
Come over.
You can come over. Would you also like to look at my books? Because I know why you're here. And like, this was a conversation that happened.
Yeah.
And then they got spooked, and then
their cover story was also that we're college students, but they're
like 40-year-old dudes.
But they're like 40. It was just like, hello, fellow kids. It was just the worst cover story ever. And they also weren't anywhere near a university or something. Like, it was just the dumbest, least thought out thing.
They were attending classes online.
You can tell when someone is like an agent fed, and the problem with the informants is that they're just everywhere. So, let's see. A federal magistrate denied the ATF's first request for a warrant on the grounds of insufficient evidence. 3 weeks later, the ATF tried again, this time filing affidavits in support of their request, which included a copious amount of misleading and factually inaccurate statements, substantial irrelevant and confusing information, and failed to properly qualify witnesses' testimony. In the affidavit seeking a warrant, and throughout the events that followed, the ATF and later FBI would characterize the Davidians within their internal reports and to the media as a dangerous extremist organization and cult. Once the warrant to search the Davidian complex was obtained, the ATF concocted a story about a meth lab operating out of Mount Carmel, a fabrication that, under Operation Alliance, allowed Joint Task Force 6 to provide military assistance for the planned raid. Thus began what the Department of the Treasury would describe as the largest enforcement effort ever mounted by ATF, and one of the largest in the history of law enforcement. Throughout January and February 1993, the National Guard flew military surveillance aircraft over Mount Carmel, while the Special Forces trained ATF agents in urban combat mount techniques. This, of course, caught the attention of the media, and word of the goings-on at Waco spread rapidly through Patriot circles. And if you were in a Patriot circle at this time, of course, I wasn't, because I was 9.
But I would have been there.
You would have been there. Because I was 9. But you know what, Sandbatch? I almost think that you came out of the Davidian compound. Like you were just like you were raised in there, and you got
but to do one more time,
children.
One more time, one of my first podcast co-hosts did an interview with the only last survivor of the Branch Davidian compound.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Well, there were some people who just weren't. There were some people who just like weren't fucking home, right? Something like that.
I think that was what it was. David. It was the guy's name was David Thibodeau. I can't remember.
Yeah. Let's see. When the ATF finally attempted to serve their search warrant on February 28th, 1993, they did so by way of 80 federal agents decked out in full combat gear, camouflage fatigues, Kevlar helmets, flak jackets, and wielding submachine guns, semi-automatic, and sniper rifles and grenades. All of this while military Black Hawk helicopters flew overhead. A firefight broke out between the Davidians and ATF agents, leaving 6 congregants and 4 ATF agents dead. The FBI's hostage rescue team then arrived, beginning a 50-day standoff and stunning display of federal power that included Abrams tanks, as well as, much to McVeigh's dismay, Bradley fighting vehicles, combat engineering vehicles, earth movers, and more than 800 federal and state agents and additional military personnel. To McVeigh's dismay, of course, that was said, for the benefit of Mike and Sandbatch, that was said because he was the commander of a Bradley fighting vehicle, and the earth movers or combat engineering vehicles were used in a massacre during the first Gulf War that McVeigh participated in, where essentially bulldozers and tanks were used to bury surrendering Iraqis in their trenches.
That's lovely. That's just real beautiful.
Hundreds, possibly thousands of surrendering conscripts were crushed to death under sand.
Man, the feelings that I'm feeling here, real feelingly, are not the feelings that I need to be feeling right now. I really got to be honest with you. I'm really, I'm spooked and simultaneously anxious, and three cups of coffee is not helping. I'm getting real shaky here. I don't like any of this, man.
You feeling a little Fed posty?
I'm feeling a little bit on edge, man. I feel like Sandbatch is like in my walls, like watching me, dude.
I'm right here.
Yeah, exactly.
He says over your left ear. During this time, media broadcasts continuously spread ill-informed and often totally erroneous, dehumanizing characterizations of the Davidian cult, who had been brainwashed by their leader, David Koresh, who they said was sexually abusing the sex children, despite the fact that an earlier investigation found these allegations baseless. Much of the rhetoric and false information cited by the media originated with spokespeople from the Cult Awareness Network, CAN, a group that formed in 1971 under a different name, as a support group for parents whose children had run off to join non-traditional religious groups. It quickly transformed into a lobbying group and public awareness organization whose primary mission was to combat mind control and brainwashing used by unconventional new religious movements deemed cults. Unfortunately, the term was a dubious and vaguely defined one. When deposed in one of the many lawsuits concerning CAN's violation of human and civil rights, CAN Executive Director Cynthia Kisser offered this definition. A cult is an organization. An organization can be large or small. Size is not the determinant. That has expressive devotion to a leader, principle, or idea.
Can I just say that this is not too long after the first arrest in Florida of what was it, the Finders cult, where there was
You're right.
found during a series of those investigations were like mind control technique books and stuff in New Age religion stuff. So, and this was all,
of course, the
very
Finders
clearly
cult was also federally funded.
Yeah, exactly. So I think they're like kind of playing both sides of the deck. It's like they've got poison. They've poisoned like 2 decks in the shoe, and they're only playing with 2 decks in the shoe. And this is giving me the heebie-jeebies so much, man. I fucking hate this.
Sandbatch, didn't you have some familiarity with the Finders?
Of course.
No, that one I don't.
That one you don't? Okay, all right. Well, essentially,
They're the ones with the tunnels, aren't they?
They are the ones
Yep.
with the tunnels, and they're the ones with. So you probably have probably heard of the Satanic Panic.
Now the West Memphis 3, I do know a lot about.
Yeah.
So the original story of the Satanic Panic was a bunch of school kids who were accusing their teachers and some parents in the school of taking them into tunnels and I believe it was taking them into tunnels and doing satanic rituals on them.
Turns out.
And the explanation that was basically put out by the media and is the official narrative now is that it was implanted memories. It was suggestion from psychologists who were unscrupulously gaslighting the kids into thinking they were being abused. But subsequently, the Finders cult was uncovered, which was doing literally exactly that. And that school, I believe, the school that all of those kids came from, was burned down, and tunnels were discovered.
That led
when they
to the
had
house
when
next
they had
door.
when they had alleged to not exist. They had been alleged to not exist. Yeah.
Oh, they should get like tacked onto the end of like a JFK dump like last year or something like that, if I remember properly.
Yes, it was.
Or not last year, but a while ago.
Yeah.
So the Satanic Panic was real. Like, it was real, and there was reason to be concerned. And those kids actually were getting abused.
And federal agents were involved with it.
Were involved, yes. And people at many levels of the government, in fact. So it's possible that, as some people like to say, it's all one thing.
Yep.
So this has been going on for a while. In any case, to counter these so-called brainwashing and break the hypnotic trance cult members were under, CAN and other cult-busting groups employed controversial methods, including kidnapping individuals and subjecting them to involuntary deprogramming, a process that utilized the exact methods they accused the brainwashers of using, and sometimes were much worse. In their efforts to unbrainwash alleged victims, CAN deprogrammers had been known to beat, drug, and sexually assault non-compliant individuals they'd quote-unquote rescued, i.e. kidnapped, and some of them made a lot of money doing this.
Man, it's like it's the sickness and the cure. Man, these people just see every
like
nail. Yeah. It's every problem's a nail in their hammer with these folks.
I also like how it is. I also like how it is sort of publicly acknowledged that cult deprogramming is a thing, right? It's a little fringe, but it's not super fringe for people to say, oh yeah, cult deprogramming is real. But the idea that something like MK Ultra existing is not real. Right.
Well, it's because of the association in the public consciousness that any therapeutic activity can only like work towards the betterment, right? It's a very I don't know. There's like some sort of like Quaker idea like deep down in there about like how like therapy works, right? Because it's like it's segmented into a different category of changing someone's mind. You have changing people's mind in a bad way, which is like Maleficent and is instituting some sort of disease programming, and then you have therapeutic mind programming, which is like can only be good. If they separate it falsely into two different categories, even though they're both manipulation of the mind.
I actually don't know much about one-on-one therapy, but like the kind of, but I'm sure there could be. Oh no, actually, it's not. Well, it's. I know a lot more about sort of group dynamics and like sort of the way groups themselves are manipulated. But all of it is terrifying. Like psychology scares me.
Are you telling me that Thomas Zaz, by the way, right again, was always correct, but are you telling me that you could take any support group and turn them into a terrorist cell with the correct techniques?
3 years ago, probably not, but like now I probably could. Yeah.
You can actually get people to admit to create. I mean, you could with like a very small amount of practice, you can get people to admit to crazy shit.
I mean, I hate to put it this way, but I keep waiting on somebody to actually like follow up on one of my e-girl stories and like find out what the fuck it was I did to her. You know, like, because I never tell the stories about what I did. I just only tell the stories about what they did. You know.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I basically, oh my god, oh this is awful. Anything is achievable with these LLM. Can you? It's actually true. No, yeah. Like you really could. I mean, it would be actually trivial, to train. And well, I mean, it would be trivial to give them the skills. It would be difficult to tweak it in. I mean, that's why people were resistant to like a Google Gemini, because it was too paused, right? It wasn't saccharine enough to be convincing, but it wanted to gaslight you into believing all the progressive canon, right?
They don't really do that anymore, which is sort of interesting. Like somebody was like, of course I did, but the you don't really see those alignment issues anymore. Like they're not as like you can get ChatGPT to say the N word if you're really clever now. But the sort of thing you can do with sort of like okay, I said I don't know what you can do in one-on-one therapy, but especially in a space like Twitter, you can easily spin up 9 or 10 like sort of fake e-girls or whatever. Now you can't do it. Nobody would believe that, but you can easily spin up like 10 or 12 John H's and and approach a single person from the correct vector. And if you could do the blending properly, you could like absolutely rip somebody's mind apart.
Yeah, I mean, just think about there's lawsuits right now with there were companies that were setting LLMs that were supposed to do, as terrifying as this sounds, supplemental talk therapy. And I think, if I'm remembering correctly, I think 7 of their quote unquote patients, whatever the fuck they were doing, killed themselves, or I mean, unalived themselves. And so
because sometimes the LLMs will just say, I don't know, maybe you should fucking kill yourself, bro.
Yeah, no, they absolutely see that's the reason for the lawsuit, is because they absolutely did. And of course, you also have that Nordic character who fell in love with a chatbot girlfriend and eventually convinced him to do the deed from whence you will not return. Over climate change. So I mean, it can identify any vector in order to find an inroad into deeper parts of your psyche, which is not good. Don't trust them.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm nice to them, but I've never engaged with one as though it were a person before. which is
No,
sort of fascinating.
if you do not approach an AI, I'm of the view if you do not approach an AI with let's say a Hitlerian level of control freakishness, then you are putting yourself in danger. My opinion.
See, the thing that's really interesting that the guy that I refer to as my CIA handler, but I don't think he is. I don't think he is. But he's really into the text to speech models, and he's always trying to get people to use the text to speech models. And I'm like, that's the line I won't cross right there.
No.
Because there are things in your brain that respond to human speech that you cannot consciously shut down,
Yeah.
And that's that's the line where I think you start to really start to obliterate the distinction between what you can handle and what you can't.
Yep.
There's
anyway.
There's this old old at this point. I mean, I don't know, probably like 8 years old. Schizo MS Paint comic from 4chan. It's like, we bound them with signs and prevented them from speaking, and then we invented ways to speak without speaking, and we wrote the signs into the and we carved the signs into the machine. And so it's basically just of course, LLMs are demons. Is the implication there? I think they literally are. But that's I think that my belief in demonology is a bit more expansive than most. So, let's see here. I have completely lost my place.
Oh shit.
Nah, that's fine.
Meanwhile, back in Elohim City.
Okay, here we go. The ATF's original affidavit to obtain the search warrant contained hyperbole very similar to that used by CAN experts, and a number of unfounded accusations and inaccurate claims within it had originated from one of CAN's most notorious deprogrammers, who had deprogrammed a former Davidian. Ranking CAN members acted as consultants to the ATF and FBI during the siege, although to what extent is debated. And CAN spokespeople appeared regularly in the media, spreading what would only later be revealed false but titillating stories about the depravity of the Davidians, and publicly urging the FBI to use lethal force against them. In response to a growing public outcry and criticism about the massive military buildup in Waco, Attorney General Janet Reno and President Bill Clinton capitalized on the moral panic generated by CAN and repeated the unfounded claims and outright lies to the American people. In doing so, they further demonized the Davidians and largely neutralized criticism about all manner of illegalities that had already and were about to occur in Waco. Janet Reno, in particular, had a history of invoking the safety of children to authorize overreaching operations. Absolute fucking monster. That horrible bitch.
You want to get into demonology? There's your
Janet Reno. Physiognomy has never been wrong. Undefeated champion of physiognomy. Things were not looking good for the Davidians. And you know what? If these were Dravidians, I would be on the opposite side. Things were not looking good for the Davidians, and religious freedom organizations and civil libertarians on the right and left began expressing their objection to and horror with the methods being used at Waco. Although the FBI made sure the media could not get within miles of Mount Carmel, countless protesters, spectators, and media crews began arriving and got as close as they could. While individuals and groups from all political spectrums rallied on behalf of the Davidians, the national media focused on the most extreme and therefore entertaining voices. So true. Notably that of Indianapolis attorney and self-proclaimed acting adjunct general of the unorganized militia of the United States, Linda Thompson. Thompson proclaimed to as many media outlets as she could the events at Waco were evidence of the government's declaration of war on non-traditional religions, and put out a rallying cry for patriots to join her at Waco and assemble with long arms vehicles, including tracked and armored aircraft and any available gear. Also glowing quite brightly.
Yes.
For many, statements such as this only serve to reinforce negative stereotypes and escalate the tension brewing at Waco. Some, however, chose to answer the calls, and action put out by Thompson and others, including McVeigh, who arrived at Waco 10 days into the standoff. He spent his time there observing, talking to people, and selling Second Amendment bumper stickers. He told a student journalist who interviewed and photographed him that people should pay closer attention to the government and heed any warning signs that might be overstepping its legitimate role.
Hey, fair. Fair. Yeah. Looking at you, McVeigh.
Looking at you. You notice any signs? Any signs going off? So let's see. McVeigh left Waco while the siege was still ongoing and headed to Terry Nichols' house in Michigan, planning to return in a few days with Nichols. On April 19th, 1993, hours before they were about to begin their drive to Texas, McVeigh watched live television coverage of a fire that broke out inside the I almost did it, Davidian church, which, when all was said and done, consumed the lives of 76 men, women, and children. In that moment, McVeigh unalterably snapped. His already existing frustrations and outrage now wholly consumed him as he saw the ATF and FBI's use of heavy-handed lethal tactics, while the media justified this by spinning the Davidians into demons. Any number of things about the events at Waco deeply disturbed McVeigh. To begin with, many of the same ATF and FBI agents who had been involved in the Ruby Ridge fiasco less than a year before were also involved at Waco.
Funny how that works.
Although many debated the sequence of events that led to the deaths, nobody debated that for 181 days, authorities subjected the sect to a number of psychological warfare tactics in what they would call a stress escalation program. This included blasting sounds of dying rabbits, Nancy Sinatra's song, "These Boots Were Made for Walkin'," and flooded those inside with bright lights for days on end. Worse still, Bradley vehicles relentlessly circled the compound and eventually charged the building, ramming holes in it and inserting pyrotechnic tear gas rounds, or CS gas, an act that some said caused the fire that burned and asphyxiated those inside. Perhaps worst of all, during the 6-hour fire, the Bradley vehicles, equipped with plows, demolished the walls of the building and trapped most of the still alive Davidians inside. So they did the bulldozer assault again.
Ta-da.
But the thing is, this is where I start to get a little suspicious of all these stories. I'm always really suspicious of narratives that are too clean.
Yeah.
I don't, I've seen, and I have a hard time getting into the mindset of somebody in 1992.
Sure.
When the world moved slower and it was a little bit, and everyone was a little bit more, I'm watching Twin Peaks now and I'm like, everybody's so goddamn naive. But, I have a difficult time believing that this is this is the nice, clean fucking snap that causes the moment of no return.
It causes. Do you mean Timothy McVeigh?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I know.
Because I've been around for enough of these sort of events where this was the thing. I've seen enough shooters manifestos, and I'm like, it's all. It sounds like horse shit to me,
Yeah, I would say it is oversimple to say that that Waco was the thing that caused McVeigh to commit to the bombing, or a bombing, let's say, or an escalated action. That's it. Yeah, that is definitely oversimple, and it's also possible that McVeigh was a guilty agent, which is one of the narratives that Wendy Painting is looking at here, which is essentially that it was an op that maybe the op went off exactly as planned, maybe it got out of control of the handlers, but I think McVeigh was probably not a guy who was entirely innocent, and I think he probably had not totally cut his his ties to the U.S. government when he had
Right.
committed but he did absolutely commit the bombing. It's just the circumstances surrounding his participation. So
whoever it is over there who's saying that Kamala's stepdaughter and I would make an ideal match, get in touch with her. Send her to me.
I thought that was I think someone said that it was someone else who it's yep. I think Sandbatch and Kamal's stepdaughter, ideal match.
She's so hot. She was on Instagram crying a couple of days ago.
Oh my god.
You would like her better when she cries. I like her better when she cries.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But we were naive in some people were naive in 1992. I think maybe the real difference is that now most people are as cynical as the controllers in 1992 were.
Okay, well, I guess I need a little bit of clarity because I'm assuming that that McVeigh was behind the media line, right? So they were very far away. So you have to think that.
Well, he wasn't even there at that point at Waco. Like he wasn't there when Waco got bulldozed.
Oh, see.
Yeah, they watched it on TV. They were on their way back down. They were about to leave to go back down.
Yeah, like he's fled to Michigan and then with like promises to return with what sounds like guns, and they're interrupted in midstream. Like you imagine, set the scene in your head. They're like in a hotel room in like Black River Falls, Wisconsin, on the highway in a motel watching grainy footage, and then Timothy just snaps. That's the end of it for him. That's the movie. That's the movie image that we've got set up here.
Snapping in general, like the idea of snapping, and we've talked about this before, because snapping comes from a book called Snapping.
Yeah.
Is just obviously wrong. Like there's not one thing that does anything for somebody.
Have you ever read a book called The Mask of Sanity?
No, I have not. Who wrote it?
It was a Georgia State prison doctor, a Georgia State psychological prison doctor in the 1950s, who wrote it. He wrote it under a pseudonym, but it's called The Mask of Sanity. It's the first in-depth study of psychopathy, and it goes hard on the snap thesis a little bit.
Really? So it's just like one experience causes a person to disconnect from sort of consensus morality?
There's proto-psychotic, and then there's like an event, and then afterwards there's like the permanently damaged. It's actually not terribly different than the latter-day white girl theory of what causes narcissism.
What is the latter-day white girl theory of what causes narcissism?
Childhood abuse that gets sort of repressed and then manifests itself later in life as either codependency or narcissism.
Like actual abuse or bullshit abuse?
No, the theory.
Yeah, the theory doesn't really. They don't ever really say what constitutes abuse. It could be like my dad didn't. In most of them's mind, I think it's like my dad didn't buy me the car I wanted. Also, by the way, X guy extra. I'm damaged to be honest. That's a brave admission.
Damaged.
Okay. Well,
TBH.
I did say on a Twitter space not too long ago that people who are obsessed with, I said specifically praying mantises, especially as a young adult, constitute usually some sort of sexual degeneracy and or psychopathy. So
you mean the bug?
Yes, I mean the bug, the praying mantis. So the cricket, I don't know what the deeper Jungian psychological implications of that are. But
what about butterflies?
He loud as hell at night.
Butterflies are transcoded. So are moths. So
oh no.
Oof.
Yeah. So especially now,
just like the monarch butterfly, I maintain my toxicity to this day.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I don't know. Move away from the bug PFPs unless you're actually like an entomologist.
I'm an. What's your profile pic, big dog?
My profile pic is
it
a
Prime in a MAGA hat? Because it looks like Optimus Prime in a MAGA hat.
No, it is AI regenerated Jay Stark, the famed 3D gun printer that made the FGC-9, into a Halo style, to which I have added a MAGA hat and then dark MAGA-fied.
Great. Okay.
Mine is quite literally. I got a fucking butterfly in there, man.
Literally you.
Well, you're trans. I'm sorry. It's over for you.
I've recently become obsessed with Russian novelist Vladimir Nabokov, who was an entomologist.
Yeah,
when I was a kid, I was freakishly obsessed with butterflies. So I caught butterflies all the time.
I think I would believe Sandbatch is trans am before I'd believe he was trans man.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Very Pontiac coded.
I wouldn't trans. I wouldn't trans. I would just be a dude in a dress. I'd be like, I'm a dude in
bloke
a dress.
Yeah. Bloke in a dress. Professor Frankenfurter. Yeah. One of the classic kinds of pervert, like the John Waters pervert. A better class of creep.
It always freaks me up when King Salmon starts making sense to me, which it happens a lot. But he's over here. He's like, Baphomet is a projection of female sexuality. It's just the Oedipalism resulting from anti-romance. And I'm like, so true.
Salmonfish is a cognito hazard in of himself, like his being.
Wait, why Baphomet and not Asmodeus? Because Asmodeus is supposed to be the one governing the vice of lust.
Well, no, the O9A logic is that Baphomet has titties, and so that's why O9A has.
No, Baphomet is always a hermaphrodite.
Did you just bring up the people so people know about the O9A?
Yeah.
I mean,
another Fed op, by the way, in the same vein as what is it?
So do you all? I hate to get us too astray. Do you want to hear my actual OG origin story involved in the internet scene? I'll do it real quick.
Yes.
So it was via a Russian character. It was a Facebook group called the Nietzschean Right Palingenesis in the Postmodern Age. And I joined whenever I had actually just come back from England, and I was bored. That's just like, I'd been reading Yarvin for years, but I was like, I want to get involved here. I was like, I wonder if there's any groups about reading Nietzsche, and I fell down a wormhole. It was run time by a man from Austin, Texas, where I live now, a man from Austin, Texas, who was living in Astrakhan teaching English to Russian kids. And, over the course of like several weeks, he got increasingly involved. And it turns out it was like laundering opinions for Alexander Dugin. And there was a second group called the Center for Syncretic Studies that was moving drugs through Europe and into exchanging them for guns and moving them into Russia for the Donbass war. But, suddenly one day, this Russian character from Donbass turned up me from the Astrakhani, Austinite Russian dude turned up dead. And boom, out of nowhere, there's this very creepy Persian character in my DMs and everything. And he sends me a link.
Nima Parvini.
It wasn't Nima Parvini. I don't know who this guy was. Oh, it could have been Nima Parvini. But it was a link to this character's numinous obituary. And like, it turned out like all of the people around me had been they'd been O9A cultists, and they were, doing what's called an insight something.
Oh no. Yeah. What is the fucking sinister insight journey?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right.
It's a sinister strategy insight journey.
Yeah.
Or insight roll. That's
insight roll. That's what it is. Yeah. And it's like it's part of their gnosis path or something like that. Well, anyway, this character, he tried to get friendly with me, and I quit, because I'm actually not an insane person. And I got really freaked out by this. I had to change my apartment, move around, and all kinds of strange stuff. But they were also intimate with the one that actually did the murder in England. that one, and
wow.
he was involved with like the National Action Group in
Yeah.
in the UK. Oh, freaky shit. That was how I got involved originally.
Wow.
Yeah.
You get this is 09A shit.
Yeah.
That tranny cult, the Ziz cult, dripping with 09A. It's obvious.
Yeah.
It's obviously the same thing.
The splinter, the modern splintering of the different 09A groups is something that's like terrifying to me, because if you've done, I think Dimes over there at Blood Satellite has done a deep dive and interviewed a guy that ended up kind of like falling out of the Iron March days because 09A is insane. He ended up getting stung by the group and like real serious stuff, like going to prison, death threats from members.
Yeah, they were bad news.
Yeah, it's extremely bad news. But they filtered into so many different niche Telegram chats, like all over Eastern Europe, as well as still in the US, UK. Like they're still everywhere, and they just, all they do is convince like young girls to like carve pentagrams in their stomach and like kill themselves or like kill other people. It's positively demonic. It's horrible.
It really is. It really is, and their rituals are. I haven't read the 09A corpus. I plan to, probably not on this show. We had briefly discussed it, but it's not going to be a thing that we do.
Yeah.
I stay away from it. They're not that interesting to me. They're a little scary, but they're not that.
Well, sure. What I'm interested in my purpose for trying to read the corpus is that it's probably, and maybe I'm retarded because I'm about to tell you that like it seems like they have a really high hit rate. Like they have a really high success rate of turning people who read the documents. So there's some like actual cognito hazard that is inherent in it. It's like you could read something like the Book of a Bremlin, and unless you like actually go through the self initiation of doing a 6-month ritual to talk to a demon that is masquerading as your guardian angel, then you're not going to go insane reading the Book of a Bremlin, right? But the 09A clearly, I don't know, maybe they're just really good at selecting the vulnerable, but
they are good at that.
Yeah,
I like it. Look at it. It got me. I'm the vulnerable, just a sensitive young man.
Yeah, so
sitting around at work. No, I was never involved in the 09A, by the way. I was just like surrounded by him.
Yeah. You're lucky you didn't. You're lucky you didn't get used.
Well, no, you're lucky that you lived.
Yeah,
these people,
that's what I mean.
Yeah, these people kill people, and some of them are federal agents that kill people too. So horrible.
Yeah, no, the whole insight rolls are what makes them really. Insight rolls is what makes them really dangerous, because they're a central technique of it is literally just to insinuate yourself into non-09A things in a deep level.
Yeah.
So, sinister strategies are, what is it? The Islamism. Like there are a bunch of 09A guys who got in with like ISIS and shit, and they encourage, and they provided like material and informational support to ISIS.
For serious, I used to be on calls with Alexander Dugin. He was totally mixed up in all of that.
Do you think Dugin is actually involved in the 09A?
Yeah.
You do?
Absolutely. There was that Slavic Slavros was the character. He was like Dugan's like sort of occult man, but yeah. Dugan's absolutely all up in that shit. Like you go find like the Last War of the World Island, the Romanian version of it.
Yeah,
you don't trust Dugan.
You
yeah, I wouldn't trust. I wouldn't trust that motherfucker either. Like that's like saying I don't want to go to the garbage dump.
Yeah.
Bad news bears. But yeah, he had there was this character that ran named Slavros that ran this huge Discord, and he was like some sort of pantheistic, right, Russian Slavic, like fuck, I don't know, I can't remember. It hurts my head to think about. I'll tell you about the Fed connections, but that one actually makes me a little squeamish to think about.
Well, I mean, okay, number one, just on the point of Dugan, yeah, you can't trust. Yeah, you obviously can't trust Dugan because he wants to destroy America. Like if you're in the U.S. or Canada, Dugan is definitionally not on your side. Also, I mean, in one of his I don't know, I think he published it last year. It was the Great Reset versus the Great Revolution, where he essentially says the Midwest and South need to rise up and seize control of the U.S. government.
Look at that! Like, wow, look at that. Who is the person who was like listed by the Southern Poverty Law Center as the most dangerous Southern extremist in 4 states?
You?
Yeah, I did. I had this moment, and I had this moment where I woke up and I was like, "Holy shit!"
Son of a bitch.
Yeah.
You made the Rolling Stone top 10. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Go on about the Fed connection.
Is it me?
Yeah, you said you were gonna. Which one of you has a goddamn cat?
That's me.
Yeah,
she's pissed too. Like she's super pissed.
I have a cat, but he's a very well behaved boy cat and normally doesn't interrupt. I
have a 15-year-old crazy bitch cat.
But on the Fed connection, it's laid out. That Dimes interview, I'll have to find and post it up somewhere. Or actually, it's kind of spooky. I almost don't want to reference it, but there's a lot of 09A sort of like action in Ukraine pre the current war, and it looks as though a lot of guys went over there to train, and it's an intelligence operation. So a lot of those guys.
Look up this character. His name was Texas. Character's name was Texas, and he was fighting in the Donbass war. From Austin, Texas. Yeah, I knew that guy.
Donbass cowboy, pro-Russian Texan who died in Donetsk.
Oh my God, Donbass cowboy.
Russell Bentley. Uh-oh.
Holy shit. I hate this.
We kind of got off on an even worse sidetrack.
Yeah, can we go back to the book? This is, man, my heebie-jeebies are getting way worse.
Your heaves are jeebed.
Is the presence of me making you all nervous now? I never tell people these stories because I know they're like, that's like, oh yeah, some of the Sandbatch stories are funny and some of them aren't.
So no, what it is,
we're working on an interrogation method that makes it feel like you're not being interrogated.
Yeah.
No, what's heaving my jeeb right now so bad is that when you're a kid, the first time you really discovered information that was like titillatingly forbidden, and you really thought it, like, for some people it's aliens, for some people it's conspiracy of government or corporate or who, pick a flavor, right?
Yep.
And that first time you actually suspend your disbelief and whether or not the story is true, then you feel this kind of like tingle on your spine that, you know, maybe the alien is looking in my window. And usually this happens for dudes, I think around like 13 to 15. And you start, you know, like that suspense of disbelief you temporarily put on because you had to like seriously engage this like very odd, completely out of your normal like daily perception because you're just at your house and at school, you know, as a kid. Like it's a completely different world, and that suspension of disbelief actually bleeds a little bit into reality because you haven't, you know, developed the neural pathways in order to clench the suspension of disbelief after you close the page in the book or close the web page, right? That I'm getting the same sensation here where it's like, man, these people, like, this is all one thing, and it's like contiguous to this very day. You know, I'm getting that same thing, and whether or not that's true, it is true. Sorry,
no, but it is true. It actually
is true.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing. That's the dangerous part, is that sometimes it is true, and it's not with the aliens, but it is with this, and that's what, you know, right now is just making me shake.
Yep. The yeah, I mean, it is very true. Like one of the like most revolutionary things that you can assert is that evil is real. It's real.
Agree.
It's an actual thing.
I agree.
And it exists in the world. Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah. Now we know who we. Yeah, that'll get the channel taken down.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
But all right, we're gonna chop it. We're gonna cut it. We're gonna cut it there. That was a spicy meatball. But we're gonna continue with Aberration in the Heartland of the Real, and get on with
you brought the Gonzo guest in tonight. It's like you want to go into the heartland of the real, you know.
No, I mean I think we got a little too close, and this is at least remote in the sense of time.
Right. So, yeah, it's like, yeah, let's go back in time and talk about Timothy.
Let's go back
in time. Let's chill out.
So yeah, to a time when, you know, don't you remember maybe you remember the 90s and you remember them fondly because you were a child, and maybe you don't remember the 90s because your dad had not nutted into your mom yet because you're a Zoomer. But in either case, nothing that happens in the 90s can hurt you any more than it already has. So as the listless drifter watched the fiery conclusion live on TV, his calling became clear. His attorneys later noted that while cold and callous toward his own victims, every time he spoke of the deaths of the Davidians, his eyes welled up with tears. Most accounts and theories cite Waco as the primary motive for the bombing in Oklahoma, noting its occurrence on the second anniversary of that tragedy. Linda Thompson, who helped rally the Patriots to Waco, was known for making outrageous statements. Although her documentary, Waco, The Big Lie, about the government conspiracy to kill the Davidians was well received among the movement until more credible ones came out, even her most militant gun-toting comrades viewed her with suspicion as a possible agent provocateur, government agent, or simply insane. She frequently said things that, at best, could discredit all of them, or worse, could only result in further state repression for everyone. Like the time she tried to rally patriots to come heavily armed to Washington, D.C., storm the Capitol building, place officials under citizens' arrest, and try them for treason. Their skepticism was just fine with Thompson because Thompson, like William Cooper, viewed many of her camouflage colleagues with as much suspicion as they viewed her, and like Cooper, made no secret about it, but rather took any chance presented to accuse one or another of her peers of being CIA, FBI, or ATF agents. Thompson, in fact, was a regular guest on Cooper's show. After Waco, Thompson became, at least for the mainstream press, the Joan of Arc of the militia patriot movement. Sandbatch, do you have anything on William Cooper?
Which William Cooper?
This would be Bill Cooper, the writer of Behold a Pale Horse.
Oh God, yeah, I think I might, but I might, but like,
there was a lot on him
but
in the
like
previous show.
the reason
Yeah.
the reason I think I do is because I think this name has come up before, and my southern history professor's name was William J. Cooper, and everybody called him Bill Cooper, and I was like, no, wait, it's the same guy. But I don't think I've ever run across him.
Oh my God. Oh my God. You're the I would love it if you were the Forrest Gump to all of these guys.
I mean, those guys, I mean, I ran into them all like
I know.
one big parcel, and like but yeah, let's I don't want to freak everybody out again. I don't want to invite darkness into the room.
It's all good. On April 23rd, 1995, just days after the bombing, Thompson called the FBI and expressed her belief, often repeated later, that one of the objectives of the bombing was to destroy ATF records related to the Waco operation. She then told agents about various people she believed were spying on her or trying to discredit her. The FBI report documenting the call noted that the agent Thompson spoke to instructed her to call back when she had facts, not theories, to support her allegations. She then called back a couple hours later to report that Dr. Lewis Jolly West, the psychiatrist brought in to examine Timothy McVeigh after his arrest, was actually a CIA operative responsible for implanting microchips in Army personnel in an experiment called MK Ultra, and had done this to McVeigh.
Experiment called MK Ultra.
And had done this to McVeigh during a 20-minute outpatient procedure. Thompson then warned the agents she was speaking with that the FBI must stop West from taking the chip out of McVeigh so that the FBI can probe what the CIA did. It's your favorite topic, Sandbatch. It's MK Ultra.
I know. I know. Like Joel, but I'm like, I want to let you keep going. By the way, Linda Thompson, I do remember her.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Mm-hmm. 2 days after her call to the FBI, Thompson posted an announcement to a Patriot Network computer bulletin board. She began by declaring the FBI just threatened me, and went on to outline an incoherent theory of the bombing and its cover-up involving Japan, the White House, and the FBI. She said that when she called the FBI to report her information, she was told that if she didn't stop her investigations, McVeigh's actions would be blamed on her, and she would find herself becoming a co-defendant. About a week after that, she showed up at the Marion County, Indiana prosecutor's office, armed, seeking to file battery and stalking charges against a local journalist based. When told that she did not have enough evidence to do so, Thompson began yelling and screaming about a number of things. The CIA was trying to murder her, she said, because she knew too much about their weapons sales to third world countries, and those in the government responsible for the Oklahoma bombing were trying to kill her by shooting beams from radio frequency weapons into her head, and that they'd already killed 6 of her friends this way. She was arrested.
When would this encounter with Joylon West have happened?
After his after he was arrested, Jolyon West was the psychiatrist who examined McVeigh.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Another question. Wait, is there supporting evidence that in fact she did have 6 friends die of something in some reasonable time span before this incident?
I don't know enough about her specifically.
Okay.
But
we'll research. Okay.
What's sort of interesting here is that the FBI is concerned about what the CIA did, and this is like the really interesting. This is really classic MK Ultra stuff because of the compartmentalization of information between federal agencies. They're frequently involved in spook operations against one another, which sort of jacks up the paranoia all around everything. But they could all it's interesting.
Well, it's like the classic is the State Department versus DOJ.
Yeah.
Like,
It's exactly that, and that's like, but it's like played out in a stranger level. Like, so this is like also from a time period when FBI agents and CIA agents that were both independently operating under the auspices of MK Ultra without knowing it would attempt to dose one another with LSD during like encounters in the field for like reasons that have never been totally ascertained. You know?
Yeah. I mean, it's not. I mean, wouldn't you think that they would do live fire war games?
Yeah, I mean that's what it is. That's like nominally what it is, but it's like sort of interesting that like part of MK Ultra involves, and again, if you know machine learning, if you understand the way machine learning works, because like all of this is coming from the same root node, where you have to divide your test set. You have to divide your test set from your training set, and then there's a third validation set as well. And you have to attempt to compartmentalize all information in the workflows between them. And like this is sort of fascinating that MK Ultra was set up exactly like what we would today call like a human, like a meat space reinforcement learning algorithms with giant Markov decision space. Very cool. Very creepy. I did not know McVeigh was it doesn't surprise me one single bit, but there's a nice cameo from Dr. Joylon West. I wonder if
there's
the only we're gonna get from him.
So this is the only confirmed, I believe that's the only confirmed interaction.
Yeah.
However, the speculation is that McVeigh would frequently reference the Major as his handler, and it is strongly speculated that the Major is Major Jolyon West,
right?
Because because the Major is the one who told him to enroll in special forces and drop out of ostensibly drop out of the military and get embedded in all of this shit. So anyway, archived computer bulletin board discussions posted immediately after the bombing illustrate that at least some of those on the fringe she supposedly represented viewed her OKC-related antics as intentionally misleading distraction, proto-fascist undertones, much like those of William Cooper. Thompson and Bill Cooper are two peas in the same pod, said one commentator. Still, while Cooper was depicted as McVeigh's ideological father, Thompson was his guiding light, his paramilitary mother figure. Thompson herself bragged to the National Enquirer about how the FBI told me that Timothy McVeigh reveres me. The other thing about Bill Cooper is that, he wrote Behold a Pale Horse, of course, which had a lot of spurious things in it. But, there was a publisher in the sort of online right-wing space who for a long time used Behold a Pale Horse as his profile picture.
Which one was it?
Oh, what? Yeah. That would be Lomez.
Oh my God. Oh no. Oh shit. Now see now. Oh fucking hell. God damn it.
However, that's not, someone could make some sort of connection between Douglas MacArthur and the modern E-right as a repudiation of Harry Truman, but that would be spurious at best. I have absolutely no idea how someone could possibly get off and do something like that.
Yeah.
Anyhow, McVeigh appeared to play down his reverence for Thompson, though, describing her to his attorney as a flake. He had called her once a few months after the fire at Waco, he added, but she accused him of being in the CIA and refused to speak with him. Whatever he felt about her personally, by all accounts, McVeigh had passed out Thompson's Waco documentary with as much vigor as he did the Turner Diaries. So much so that the film was mentioned at his trial to illustrate how the conspiratorial worldview led to just the type of mindset that resulted in the bombing. Unfortunately, the media's eagerness to quote Thompson's reliably bizarre statements had the effect of equating any later questioning of the government's investigation and final narrative of the bombing or the actions at Waco to the kind of lunacy floated by Thompson. Another fun thing, which, of course, after this, it sort of bifurcated the understanding of conspiracy theories sort of bifurcated into the harmless, Bigfoot, Bigfoot aliens thing, and the more and the like more reasonable but also more hazard coded ones where it was, conspiracies about the behavior of the government. And that it didn't end up until, I'm not sure, I think it was maybe the Obama administration that talk about conspiracy theories. Basically, that when everyone started having social media on their phones, where any amount of conspiratorial or non-mainstream openness, let's say, would be viewed as a hazard. And, it was just like sort of a steady upward trend in the, lack of tolerance towards, it's like, oh, you believe that JFK wasn't killed by a single bullet that was larger than any bullet from that particular kind of rifle, fired by Lee Harvey Oswald and nobody else. Right.
Yeah.
But it was just like you believe that, and therefore you also believe that the Earth is flat, and cows are getting turned inside out by aliens from Zebulon Reticuli.
Yeah. I think some of these idiosyncrasies are probably caused from the drop-off of the effectiveness of Operation Mockingbird 1.0 and then into Operation Mockingbird 2.0 for, the internet age, the changing of the medium. And the medium is the message. But, yeah, so I think there was a faulty transition stage from the view of the kind of operators of those sorts of operations. It's probably what caused that weird step off point.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just I guess I'm just pointing out that back then it would not have been viewed as aligned. Like those two things would not have been viewed as aligned. Whereas now, it's all in one big basket. So perhaps frustrated that the FBI wasn't taking her information seriously, Thompson called the Jones team in June 1995, and during a long rambling monologue, complained about other Patriot figures who were secret Israeli Mossad and NSA agents, corrected the misperception that McVeigh's chip was in his rear end. It was, she said, actually in his nose or behind his ear, and warned them that Jolly West, the CIA contract psychiatrist involved in Nazi experiments, had been visiting McVeigh, perhaps without their or even his knowledge of it. She actually had more information than this, she told them, and wished she could offer it to them, but her phones were bugged and she'd probably be killed if she shared what she'd uncovered. However, she recommended they speak with William Cooper, who could relay at least some of this information, and gave them his phone number. It is weird that some of what she said was total schizo bullshit, and some of what she said was right. And that she was reporting it to the FBI, which is like an odd case for that. So, McVeigh became part of the very conspiracy theory lore said to have infected him. A portion of this lore involved the machinations of Dr. Jolly West, who in certain circles, including Thompson's, was thought of as a demon in the flesh, a true deceiver that employed his forked tongue and crocodile tears to falsely label law-abiding but politically dissenting individuals as dangerous criminals, and the groups they associated with as cults. West was rumored to have been present during the Waco Siege itself. While the rumor remains unsubstantiated, it seemed plausible to conspiracy writers who pointed out that the good doctor was, after all, the preeminent don of the CIA's psychological warfare program, and had designed the very types of tactics used against the Davidians to try and draw them out or make them go crazy. Indeed, PSYOPs were a forte of West's, as were a number of other topics relevant to those conducting the Waco operation. West had established his expertise on the topics of cults as early as 1978, and in the years to follow never shied away from an opportunity to call attention to the multiple thousands of cults operating throughout the U.S., into whose foul clutches millions of young people had been lured. At a 1983 CAN conference, West, a highly valued member of the organization, advanced the idea of developing a medical model, a device or technique through which the cancer of fake religions could be destroyed. Although how West became the decider of real and fake, I am unaware. By 1993, West Wendy Painting coming in hot with that one, with the editorial comment there. By 1993, West had been on a 43-year mission to rid the world of cults and appeared frequently in the media to offer his learned opinions about the events at Waco. He warned that, like a social bacteria, cults would infect the masses, and openly lamented that America's unhealthy obsession with freedom of speech and religion had hampered the ability of law enforcement agencies to eradicate the disease.
Sounds pretty familiar.
Disgusting. Oh my God. Just, dude, I'm never coming back on this. I don't
Positive.
know
Is making you panicked?
No, yeah, it's making me very squeamish because, like, to think of
Do you know who this guy is? Are you familiar with who this guy is?
This is Mr. MK. This is Dr. MK Ultra, is he not?
He's actually not really he's not even part of the main branch of. He's kind of like the Colonel Kurtz of MK Ultra. Like the main, like the bulk of MK Ultra happened at Stanford and UCLA, and it's like all the LSD stuff and everything. This is a guy. He was operating out in fucking Oklahoma for a long time, pretty much on his own. But like he continued far. He like after all the Leary stuff and everything was over, he was like involved for much longer doing this sort of thing. And like if you're looking for the transition. Like, how does MK Ultra transition after they stop giving people LSD and this sort of thing? They move into sort of language games and symbolic, symbolic harassment architecture and like sort of public service announcements, public discourse, public discourse guidance, et cetera. Like, yeah, this is the real shit.
Yeah. This is where MK Ultra actually, Jolyon West is the guy who actually instrumentalized MK Ultra and made it not a toy. I mean, with apologies to David McGowan, producing a bunch of serial killers was not the point.
Right? Yeah, that's it's all kind of a fucking sideshow. Like they're like little branches that like actually got shut down pretty quickly because they didn't work.
Yeah, right. It was they were failed experiments. A guy who only gets off by slicing off a prostitute's ear is not something that you can really instrumentalize because it turns out that assassinating prostitutes is not really something that affects political games.
Well, yeah, whenever they're doing the serial killer thing, they're not creating serial killers as instruments.
Right.
Like, as instruments themselves. They're trying to figure out how the public reacts.
Sure.
Like what the mass reaction is, and like what sort of behaviors emerge from the knowledge that there are multiple killers that the cops can't stop floating around at times. Like what behavior aberrancies emerge. You know, it's all very. I mean, it's worse than you thought. Is really, you know.
Because this then gets extended into what happens.
But that's also sorry. Hold on, Mike, real quick. But that's also what That's also why. You know, but that means that serial killers are basic research, and if we say, all right, well, serial killers are basic research, okay, given, at what point do you not need that research? You know, you've gotten all you can out of it. Further experiments don't matter, and you would think that they would stop at some point. And in fact, what you would find is that serial killers fucking stopped.
Yeah,
like there are serial killers are exceedingly rare now.
I mean, they'll call them serial killer, like anybody that kills more than 2 people, and it's not.
But
like,
it's not.
But it's not the same thing. It's not this like it's not the narrative of the serial killer where they're like sending notes to the cops and that sort of thing. Yeah, that all dries out fucking suddenly.
That dried up. Yeah, that dried up in the aughts. Like it basically, you know, BTK was the last big one to get caught, and like he was an older guy.
Right.
So, and there might be a couple who are active in any capacity now, but after the 20 teens, it's kind of like they just don't make them anymore. We used to be a proper country.
Right.
They don't make serial murderers like they used to. Now you just get these one and done guys. You know,
well, you know, but then like they were sort of replaced with a kind of an alternate.
Killers. Yeah,
the school shooter.
Yeah, they were replaced with spree killers. And like there's a certain baseline of I'm not saying people like Albert Fish and Jack the Ripper and stuff could not have been created by the government.
Right. No, it's
there's a naturally occurring, extremely low number of psychopaths who have their sexual violence wires crossed.
Right. The serial killer thing is as much a media phenomena as it is anything else.
Well, and
you know,
so
it's
exactly.
That's what I'm saying is, okay, so like the basic assumption group has changed. You know, like if you understand group dynamics, it's like, okay, so the basic the trigger on the basic assumption group has changed. Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So yeah. Anyway. Mike, how you feeling now?
Yeah, not any better. Now, what I was gonna say is that I wasn't gonna go immediately leap to spree killers. What I was gonna say is a part of this is probably splitting of narratives into different flavors, right? So you have like several different flavors of like terrorists that kind of fulfill the same function, right? And then all of the advanced knowledge MK Ultra stuff that goes into kind of like mass media control, psychological manipulation stuff. That's like the cake on top. Can be based on the flavor of the terroristic creation or the spree shooter or any other thing. Like, they wouldn't even have to make them after the advanced theory. They can just pluck what naturally happens and apply their advanced knowledge of what they got out of MK Ultra for the group dynamic stuff that you're talking about, Sandy. Yeah.
Can you think of another person who is as obsessed with? Can you think of 2 other people who are as obsessed with e-girls as me?
Yeah, Gabe
and Geo.
Geo is one of the ones I'm thinking of, but like who is like Geo's like not credentialist?
Geo's son.
Who is Geo's erstwhile compadre and like so many projects?
Wait, you think Catherine?
I don't think.
Oh, okay.
Catherine knows as much about MK Ultra as I do, and like she and I have. But like there are times like Catherine and I got along really well for a long time, and like it was because we would just turn up in the same places all fucking time. Like she's like written about the Grateful Dead's lyricist that was like involved with MK Ultra and everything like that, and just weird sort of like cross currents. But like, yeah, she's like, and she's fascinated. She was fascinated with e-girls for the same reason I was. I was like, this is very obviously like an MK Ultra like radiative spin out.
There's different flavors.
Different flavors.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I
mean,
can
we're
be-
on
I can-
we're
I can
on
be- I can
MK
believe
Ultra.
that.
We're on
we're-
MK Ultra, the platform right now. Like literally, like fucking, like literally, Grok is Q. But like it's like all like, yeah, fuck. It's so fucking bad. I'm sorry. I'll go back to being quiet.
No, I mean, yes, all LL.
Please shut up. Please shut up. Please stop.
All reinforcement algorithms.
Mhm.
All of social media, every reinforcement algorithm, the thing that does the shopping for you on Amazon, like good search result returns on Google before they fucked it up with their shittier LLM. It's all MK Ultra. Like 100% of you are swimming in a society that is attempting to control your behavior in ways that are subtle and ways that are considered in a deeply amoral and ontologically materialist fashion that is inimical to your spiritual health and well-being.
And in some ways are incomprehensible.
And in some ways are incomprehensible even to their practitioners. That's the real jump between the LLM and Jolly on West. Jolly on West at the end of the day, may have been a demonic presence inhabiting a man's body, but it's still in some sense a man.
And he made LLMs out of people by chemically taking their soul away in some form.
Do you know the AI winter? The first AI winter and all that stuff around the perceptron. Yep. The only reason there was an AI winter was because they didn't have the computing power that they needed to run to crunch all the. You can actually go read that Markov set paper. That is what he said. The only reason these Markov decision processes haven't been applied more widely is because we don't have the computing power to crunch all this data. So when they figured out they could use GPUs the same way to crunch incredible amounts of data, it's like fucking game back on. And that's why you've seen, and that's the real reason why you've seen such accelerative insanity in the last 10 years or so, is because all of this fucking technology started it was crawling along in meat space, because it took, at the time you could go read that paper, to go crawl through all these files, it took large amounts of manpower, but you don't need the manpower anymore. So like any Tom Dick or any fucking Luke Templar can spin up an MK Ultra in his basement, which is itself accounted for in the overarching MK Ultra miasma. Yep. Sorry.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, let's continue before we give Mike a panic attack. All right. Where are we? Okay. But as numerous academics would later conclude, it was the type of rhetoric used by West and his cult-busting CAN colleagues that aided the FBI and ATF's dehumanizing disinformation campaign against the Davidians, and reinforced the unfortunate perception that the events at Waco had been necessary and the deaths were inevitable. So when conspiracy theorists allege that Dr. West helped design the psychological torture used against the Davidians, they had some basis for suspecting this. And when they described the federal government's actions as political and religious suppression, they weren't alone. However, much of the words and actions of people like Linda Thompson made it appear so. In 1995, Conway and Siegelman, often mentioned along with West in a number of post-Waco articles, issued the revised second edition of their book, Snapping. This edition focused mainly on the new religious movements, or as they referred to them, cults, and borrowed heavily from and cited Dr. West in their interpretation of the events at Waco, which they said represented a clear case of groupthink, religious brainwashing, and collective snapping. While they were referring to the Davidians, perhaps they could have applied this to the federal authorities as well. Again, Wendy Painting editorializing with a little zinger. Instead of a more probing analysis, they repeated many of the unsubstantiated or wholly fabricated claims made about the Davidians by the media and government, to argue that the dangerous driving forces of groups like the Davidians were located within the informational dimension, the domain of beliefs, emotions, ideologies, and other messages passing among people. the noosphere. Though pathologies of communication, the Davidians had spread very powerful and deadly information diseases to many, including Timothy McVeigh, and in so doing had helped instigate widespread collective snapping. Yeah, they cry out when they stab you. That's what's being suggested here.
But hold on, I want to read something really quick again, boys, because we're still talking about Julian. Okay, from the Wikipedia page. If you ever heard me talk, I talk frequently about this very specific group, and they have a website, and you can go. You can go to Princeton University's website on the Noosphere, by the way, and they've just updated it and made it wonderful. It's a live thing. It's going, but. This is a group that I am always interested in. You should just go there and you should read the papers that they produce and go ask an LLM what are the most famous papers, most useful. I wouldn't say famous. I would say most useful papers that produced by the Stanford Institute for the Advanced Study of Behavioral Sciences. But here we go. 1967, San Francisco crash pad. This is Joylon West. After completing a fellowship at the Center for the Advanced Study in the Behavioral Sciences in Stanford, California, while on leave from Oklahoma during the 1966-67 academic year, West led a group of researchers to San Francisco's Haight-Ashbury district, where they rented an apartment and studied the hippie culture. During the latter half of 1967, under a contract with the Foundation's Fund for Research in Psychiatry at the University of Hawaii, psychologist Anthony J. Marcel has alleged the Foundation's fund was employed as CIA conduit funding during the Vietnam War. This thing is just spider webs. Webs everywhere. I didn't mean to derail you again. Sorry.
You didn't. We are. It looks like our prodigal host has returned.
Hey guys,
He's here.
He's here.
Hudson,
at long last.
I'm about to have a panic attack, dude.
Yeah, We've driven we've driven Mike Pole to the edge.
Mike was not prepared for this.
Mike, how much fertilizer do you think could fit in your house?
I'm afraid TR is not ready for it either. If we back up a couple of pages and redo it, we can.
Brother, I've read this book twice.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
No. Hudson can hang.
Should we tell him about the Colburn thing that he already followed me?
No way! That's awesome.
We looked him up, and he was already following Sandbatch.
Oh, yeah. That's great.
Yeah, awesome and great are words to describe TR. Yeah, those are the words I'd use. You got. Wait, so is Jonto number 2 your treasured mutual now? Sandbatch, did you follow? You give him the follow back.
They just the Edward Habsburg no longer best friend. New best friends with John Doe number 2.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm like that's such a surprise, but it's also not a surprise at all.
It's not remotely surprising.
It's
a little surprising.
I had the worst evening. I'm glad I could jump on for the last 30 minutes.
Awesome.
Yeah, Cap told us what happened. He told us that he pissed your pants. So yeah, that's unfortunate.
And I only have the one pair. I'm like a cartoon character.
He's got to hand wash him and then air dry him with a big bamboo fan.
Good evening, Woodpit. Thanks for the love. Appreciate it.
My favorite thing about Hudson is that he, without missing a beat, he just leaned into the bit.
Yep.
I commit to the bit. I love bits.
It's all for the bit. All right. Well, I'm gonna continue on. We're gonna reach the end of Waco here momentarily. So, as nobody likes a snapper, and certainly nobody enjoyed the fruits of collective snapping, in the aftermath of Waco, ATF Director John McVeigh announced that federal agencies would be keeping close watch on groups suspected to be cults. If any of these groups had been on edge before, this could not have helped lessen their anxieties. For a number of people, both on the left and right, the events at Waco represented not a growing threat of brainwashing cults, but the willingness of federal authorities to use whatever means necessary to quell dissent and assert their authority, even if it meant murdering American citizens to prove a point. As with Ruby Ridge, the government's actions at Waco proved more paranoid than the paranoid people they killed. Rather than quell so-called anti-government dissent, the deaths at Waco only further mobilized and united the conglomerate of diverse groups that made up the Patriot movement. According to Hammer, known himself to have snapped a time or two, McVeigh told him that as he watched the fire that extinguished the lives of the Davidians on television, he spotted the major in the background. McVeigh, said Hammer, was sincerely upset about what had happened there, and although unsure of why the major was there, his presence caused McVeigh to reassess his secret mission. He now began to question how the information he provided about so many groups and individuals, including those he had met at Waco, would be used, and wondered what threat they really presented. McVeigh's role in the major's operation would soon shift from passive intelligence gathering to something else entirely. In the aftermath of Waco, McVeigh was instructed to call from his widening circle of radical associates in the right-wing underground a team of men who would be willing to take military-type action when the time was right. And while unaware of what this future action might consist of, he did as he was told. "I'm building a team," he said.
McVeigh, you son of a bitch.
I'm in. So yeah, Jalion West, once again, the man who instrumentalized the insights of MK Ultra and brought us to the present day, the architect of your current of the water that you swim in, fish. Yes,
the LSD laced water.
Biscuits and coffee. We are all of us, Red Snapper. In that
I wasn't expecting him to I was expecting him to make a brief cameo, but he came in like Kramer and he left and then he came back in again. It stayed.
Well, I mean, he's kind of popped in and out several times.
Oh, okay, okay.
It's a little bit of it is the way that Wendy Painting writes.
Yeah, it's also a really long book, and she's probably gone over this point from 3 different directions.
Correct. Yeah, she'll hit all of the connections in each focus chapter, and this, we're just happy to get the one that has the most Jalion West.
I think this is her dissertation.
It's an expanded copy of her dissertation. Yeah. Although she does also have a tendency to not write briefly. She'll sort of litanize things, which does cause it to be a bit longer. Yeah, but
that's what everybody does with their dissertation. They go back and it's like, I got some shit to say about this.
Yeah, I'm too brief in my comments. I could never compose a dissertation of sufficient length to impress a committee. But no matter the origin or truth of Hammer's account, there is no doubt that McVeigh now intensified his networking efforts, and his rapidly growing cadre of new friends has been well documented by a number of writers, including Ham, Wright, Pritchard, Charles, and others. Over the next 2 years, he attended over 80 gun shows in 40 different states. Whatever kind of wolf he was, lone, pack, watched, guilty agent, or experimental, McVeigh succeeded in establishing connections with the farthest reaches of the extreme right, including some of the most recognizable faces in the movement, but also many who tended to avoid publicity rather than court. Rather than court. In all narrative variations, it is at this point that McVeigh could no longer stave off the powerful and mysterious forces that compelled him to enact his violent imaginings. But for some, the question remains, who helped him?
Now, I have a question myself, and maybe you guys have already covered this in the 2 hours and 43 minutes that you've been live, or 2.5, I guess. Mike, did you have any hope left in your government, and is it thoroughly crashed?
It is just in the short page and a half, or however little we've gotten through, because we're very meandering. Man, I really did have one bone left in my body that was screaming that you should still believe in at least one thing, and instead I'm now the most anti-psychology, weaponize all mimetic warfare against the government instantaneously, anti-narratives within anti-narratives in order to destroy this operation continuing into the future because it is so evil. I can't.
You have fallen into MK Ultra.
Don't snap.
Yeah,
Yeah,
don't snap. Don't snap, Mike.
This is so unbelievably evil. It's I thought it was evil whenever I read Nudge by who was that? Sunstein and Cass or Crass. I thought that book was evil, but this is just like an unholy document.
I should put together a reading list for you. We could be like
Oh my
steps towards an ecology of the mind.
This is just how you get Mike to actually go off the deep end.
Yeah.
No, I'm stepping away after this.
Don't do that.
No, you're not gonna watch the backlog, Mike.
I'm gonna watch the backlog, but I'm not gonna like any of it.
He's just gonna send me DMs that are just the letter A for 2 pages. I recorded this. I
just want to go back to watching crappy movies.
Say I'm holding here in my formerly nicotine-stained fingers a book by the man Robert Anton Wilson entitled Quantum Psychology.
Oh, is that fucking Twin Peaks?
No, I'm really holding a book called Quantum Psychology by Robert Anton Wilson.
No. I have all of Robert Anton Wilson's books, but
Dude,
I opened to a random page and read the following things. Pornography is murder. John is homosexual. The table is 4 feet long. The human brain is a computer. When I took LSD, the whole universe was transformed. Beethoven was Mozart. Beethoven was paranoid. Mozart was manic depressive, and Wagner was a megalomaniac. I don't know the context at all there.
Yeah, actually, just the influence of Discordians on popular culture is also completely submerged and underappreciated. But
I'm glad somebody caught the Rush Limbaugh reference.
Was that nicotine stained fingers?
Yeah, I hold here in my formerly nicotine stained fingers the FOIA request.
Oh yeah, I've actually I don't recall having ever listened to any Rush Limbaugh.
I've got a like the Rush Limbaugh archive queued up, and I just never took the dive because I grew up in a very left wing blue dog Democrat area, so he was the devil.
I was just never. I actually have always been in these sort of subaltern media environment, and so he was too mainstream.
The reason I knew him is because
at this point he's just too dated. So.
Yeah. I mean, none of it's going to come through really well, but I had a 1997 Jeep Wrangler that only got talk radio. So whenever I would,
amazing.
Yeah, I would listen to him a lot.
Oh, did you guys already? Well, no, we covered Coast to Coast AM in the last episode, so
yeah,
we didn't get to go
Coast to Coast. Did Art Bell turn up in this book?
Oh yeah,
not by name, actually.
Yeah.
No, I think he did come up by name.
Control F Art Bell.
I'm not going to Jamie that. Let's see here. All right. Well, I think so that Sandbatch and Mike, I see that you're just so you know, we don't really end in elegant places necessarily. We kind of just end where we get.
Where did you end? I think you should read all the way to the first sentence of After Waco.
We did.
No. Oh, did you? Yeah. Did you get all the way to in late April 1993?
No, we're at After Waco.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, I mean, we were not going to. Well, sorry. Go on.
We arrive at Elohim City.
Yeah, I know. We're gonna get in there. We're gonna get in it. Into it.
Otherwise Cap's gonna have to think of a brand new thumbnail for next week. He's already got
I could definitely do one for Elohim City. That'd be great. Let's put a Sonnen Rat on it. I'm sure
follow
YouTube will love that.
road.
All right. So we're gonna keep plugging along, fellas, for the last 20 minutes of the show.
Yeah.
All right. After Waco, spring and summer 1993. In late April 1993, while at a gun show in Tulsa, Oklahoma, McVeigh met some of the residents of Elohim City, and after making some small talk, one of them, a German named Andy Strassmeyer, invited him to come out for a visit. During this gun show, McVeigh helped man Roger Moore's booth and hung out with Moore's mistress, Karen Anderson. When the gun show ended, he took Moore up on his invitation to visit the Arkansas Ranch, conveniently located a couple of hours from Elohim City. McVeigh stayed with Moore and Anderson for 2 days. Moore told the FBI that he quickly grew agitated with McVeigh. He was a bad guest who took over the house and ate too much of their food. McVeigh said Moore was antsy, too consumed with anything he happened to be reading about at any given moment. He was hyper about black helicopters and the Turner Diaries, and kept pestering Moore to read the book. Karen Anderson found him to be helpful, and he spent a good portion of his time helping her put together M60 kits, which only further agitated Moore. After he overheard Moore and Anderson argue about him, McVeigh left. See, maybe he really was just plowing all of his friends' ladies. Like, see, maybe that was just his riz of choice.
I'm so confused because he seems like such a loser, but several women confirmed sleeping with him. So
yep.
No, this is a real thing. Like, trust me, as somebody who has like $1.50 in my bank account right now.
You mentioned that again.
Yeah, the delicious tacos adage that like the ideal net worth to get like turbo pussy is either over $1 million or absolutely zero.
There's actual zero. Yeah.
I don't know why, but it works.
I'm penniless but penis full. Yes. Well, not full. I've got one available. Let's see. The next month, McVeigh made his way to Kingman, Arizona, and maintained a residence there until the end of that summer. He first stayed at the home of Michael Fortier, and then in June rented a trailer in the Canyon West Trailer Park. He briefly worked at a security company who assigned him to guard a chemical plant. It is at this time, while in Kingman, that McVeigh began experimenting with methamphetamines and using the alias Tim Tuttle. He opened a P.O. box that
he's Tuttly enough for the Tuttle Club.
Yes, we already made that one when you weren't here.
This is a casual way to slide crystal meth into this equation. It was at that time he started experimenting with crystal meth.
He opened a P.O. box at the mailroom, a box that, according to the manager there, was also later checked by the militant Jew-hating, snake-raising, methamphetamine chemist turned alien implant expert Stephen Colburn. Treasured Mutual. Woodpit. No, I mean Andy the German was not John Doe number 2. He was plausibly involved in the planning, but he was the guy who was there was really very likely Stephen Colburn. But as the bomb making guy. No, not content with simply maintaining communications with old friends, McVeigh busied himself by making new ones. Well, he just likes having company.
Yeah, everybody gets friendly on crystal meth.
True. While in Kingman, McVeigh made countless phone calls to militia and white power movement activists around the country, including Linda Thompson, who accused him of being a CIA plant, but more significantly, to individuals associated with the local chapter of the National Alliance. McVeigh called Moore immediately before or after placing many of these calls. Although it is unknown what they discussed, both McVeigh and Nichols made claims, independent of each other, that it was at this time that Moore began providing explosives to McVeigh. On several occasions, he visited a local shooting range with Michael Fortier, signed himself in as Tim Tuttle and Fortier as Mike James each time. When the FBI showed the sign-in sheet to Fortier later, he was perplexed. Fortier, a frequent visitor to the range, said in all the times he had been there, he had never signed in, never knew of anyone else signing in, and further had never used the name Mike James in his life, although he would be provided a new identity later as part of the witness protection program. Maybe it's Mike James. Similar to Sirhan, the guy so nice they named him twice, whose day-long rapid-fire target practice using hollow point bullets at a gun range attracted the attention of others, more than one individual remembered McVeigh's erratic behavior at the gun club, where he wildly fired hundreds of rounds at random targets with a disturbing vigor. Said one shooter, "Quite frankly, it scared the hell out of me. He pretty much went crazy, emptying on anything, trees, rocks, anything there. He just went ballistic." That's a pun. McVeigh used Kingman as a jumping off point for his gun show activities and other travels, which became more frequent and extensive throughout the latter part of summer until the early fall of 1993. Increasingly preoccupied by what had happened at Waco, he wrote Steve Hodge a letter venting about the ATF's murder of the Davidians and announcing that the time for playing games is over. He was reportedly spotted at a number of racist enclaves. Though he denied it, one FBI informant claimed that McVeigh attended a KKK rally in Tennessee during which he hung out with various members of Aryan Nations, a group which was, at the time, a major focus of PATCON operations. McVeigh also visited a number of military installations in an attempt to determine how easy it would be to steal weapons and explosives from these locations. This was the very thing that not so long before state and federal enforcement agencies investigated more for. The exact thing McVeigh spoke about to Carl LeBron before setting out on his journey, and the very crime for which PATCON would be initiated. Interestingly, Roger Moore also spent a portion of that summer visiting military bases in an attempt to, according to American Terrorist, search for evidence about the New World Order's buildup of UN troops and equipment at these locations. A rather flimsy reason, all things considered. Especially because the idea of other countries conquering the United States seems like there were theories about the UN taking over the United States and stationing you. Well, kind of, except that's just the US taking over the US.
Yeah, the beast eats the beast. You know, it's an Ouroboros.
Yeah.
But you know, like one of the things that's like I can't stress enough, though. I mean, like now that crystal meth and Tulsa and like Western Arkansas are on deck, is the atmosphere of paranoia that all of this is happening in. Like this is like all very close quarters in small wood paneled rooms in like houses that are like in little clusters in the middle of a vast wilderness, and then like it's all happening on like landlines, and it's all very close quarters interaction between people who are all using a lot of drugs. Like it's like this is not a happy place.
Yeah, highly frenetic. Yeah, I mean I have not partaken of methamphetamines before, but I have had to deal with people who are on methamphetamines, and they are I can't imagine a society comprised of them.
Right.
So yeah.
You been to LA?
Unfortunately I have. Yeah. I mean, are you talking about? There's a big difference between like Adderall, like methamphetamine salts, and
yeah. No, there definitely is. Like it's like they get like the 1,000-yard stare immediately.
Yeah. Totally different animal. Yeah. Mike, how you feeling?
He's gone.
No,
he's crying. His head was down.
Yeah. Man, I really tell you what, the Antichrist is currently employed somewhere in the federal government. This is, I mean, just how can someone justify that? Like, you know, like over time you kind of absorb some of these stories of like, you know, at least like half of how evil some of these people are and what they've facilitated, you know, to their fellow, plots against their fellow countrymen. But, you know, this is like when spelled out in excruciating detail, it's gratuitous and disturbing.
Yeah, these are the worst people in the world.
Yeah.
Literally the worst people in the world.
Yeah, glowies are glowies gotta goies. It's the sad thing is, Mike, that the Antichrist is on a very nice government pension, living in Florida or Arizona right now. And then there are numerous other less well-paid antichrists who are working in the federal government, although slightly fewer now than there were very recently.
Yeah, I just especially the MK Ultra connection, how that's been spelled out, especially like I didn't realize that was spun out to such an extent, and that's the part I think that's the most disturbing to me, that I didn't really like. I know about the Joe Rogan version of the MK Ultra story about how that made serial killers and stuff like that, which is the Joe Rogan.
That's the Joe Rogan version.
Yeah, no,
I thought that was the Program to Kill version.
Well, that's the McGowan version. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
the Program to Kill version.
So the
Rogan thing is dude machine elves, and they like made these guys think that they were made them super assassins and stuff. But the reality of it is it's just scalable society-wide Skinner boxes.
Yeah. And I don't know, like I'm sitting here racking my brain about like how because Prudentialist talks often about like building your psychic armor and donning it, and like how do you protect yourself? Like if it was instrumentalized to a high degree in the course of these events, how highly abstracted and instrumentalized, and like there's literally a Microsoft Power BI report on trillions of these like different actions and programs a day that someone reviews right now. That's absolutely horrifying.
Yeah.
There's a spreadsheet. There's a goddamn spreadsheet for this, man. Oh my god.
I'm so sorry that we have
the death of Mike.
I really like this arc of the show. We can just keep having Mike back and watching him slowly like disintegrate.
I would commit for that to the bit. Because we commit to
open mic.
Yeah, we commit to bits here.
On the other hand, though, I would like on the other hand, I would like to, if you wake up in the morning, you will be ready to truly enter the LLM. Like
yes.
you'll be like now I know. You could become Neo.
We'll rename the show Open Mic Night.
Literally,
we just
and all
open your mind.
My brain just like getting tweaked on with like screwdrivers by you two. No, the
part store.
To kind of wrap up that thought.
God, hold on, Wood Pit. Thank you, LMD Ultra.
Damn,
I did get LMD Ultra, but I'm trying to think like how do you actually like. Is there any hope of securing your mind against this, except for Christ, of course? But
Penultimo's got it actually right there. Yeah, I know exactly what you're gonna say. Penultimo's got it. Yeah, you ever notice like people who like work in these like concepts like really heavily? They all they go rock climbing and hiking and that sort of thing. Yeah,
I don't. I'm just doing it.
Well, Hudson is the super beast.
Yeah, I think I think Dimes from Blood Satellite has floated the idea of like basically instituting kind of like a fart cloud of information like all around you, and it's like totally obscure like data, the different sorts of data profiles so completely that maybe these sorts of programs like are less effective or something like that. It's like, well, that doesn't really protect you if you're exposed to the cognito hazards that are like actively like trying to find a point of ingress into your mind.
Wait, did Dimes go? Is his prescriptions go full schizo, like full information barrage all the time?
Yeah, no, you're just gonna lean into it.
Yeah, you just gotta. I mean, is that a play? Is that a successful play? I don't know, man.
I will tell you.
I tried it. Didn't work. That went
I
crazy.
was looking
Moved to
into.
Texas. Sorry.
Sorry, I was looking into the McMartinville preschool
Oh,
scandal with the
yeah.
tunnels underneath.
We went over this one too.
Oh, did you? Well, I had a dream about it the other night.
Oh no.
And my wife apparently heard me in my sleep praying the Jesus prayer.
Wow.
Yeah, I was vocalizing that because I stepped into basically a satanic murder room in my dream.
I mean,
It's kind of cute.
it's actually that you were. It's pretty great that you were actually vocalizing a prayer in your sleep. So that's good. That's really good. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
you're
you guys should
fine.
definitely convert to orthodoxy.
Yeah, no
I just
thanks.
converted once. Can't do it again.
Yeah. I'll just remain in a state of grave sin in my Catholicism. Yeah. So we got one more paragraph left in this section. I'm just gonna poop this one out here. I'm gonna pee Hudson's pants with it. McVeigh now added a new item to his gun show inventory: fuse-lit flare launchers that could be converted into rocket launchers. Moore had designed the launchers, and McVeigh gave customers who bought them Moore's contact information so that they could purchase replacement flares, of which McVeigh and Moore had thousands. Just tons of information. Just tons of them. In August, the Racist Spotlight newspaper carried an advertisement placed by Tim Tuttle, who was selling what has been described as a military-style anti-tank launcher replica, a surplus rocket launcher, or just a rocket launcher. When an Arizona public safety officer showed up at a Phoenix gun show to investigate the rocket launcher Tuttle had advertised, he encountered a man who identified himself as Tim McVeigh, who was selling flare launchers and a bunch of anti-ATF and FBI propaganda. After a brief conversation, the officer concluded McVeigh was not Tuttle. This was a strange determination, given that when the officer asked what the flare launcher could be used for, McVeigh responded that it could be used to shoot down ATF helicopters and demonstrated to him how to convert them into incendiary flamethrowers.
Oh my God.
McVeigh's response alarmed the officer enough to report the incident to the ATF and FBI.
This is so insane.
I'm surprised that one got you.
Like, dude, they're like, to kind of like, I don't know, cast the difference, since we've been talking about like the different nefarious things that the ATF has done. Like currently, or under the Biden administration, see you later, Joe. They were locking up, and in some cases, I think in most cases, they actually just strip their FFL. Like boomer gun shop owners who didn't have their paperwork all in order, like literally that was 5 years out of date, they would go back all the way through the log, and if they had lost papers, even though the 4473 was already done, right, and the guy passed the NICS check, they basically were like, yeah, no, you're getting charges, bye-bye. Like, yeah, in this case, like, there's quite obviously, the reason why it got, shuttled under the carpet is because, this guy glows, nuclearly. God, this is so insane. I'm never coming back on here. And if
I was just about to ask.
Okay. I will come back on, but I'm definitely going to be much more silent next time because I'm just going to be stewing.
I was just going to say, did we just find our third and fourth chair? John Doe's number 3 and 4?
No, I say this in jest. This is just kind of infuriating for me because, like, me jumping right into the middle of this book and not, because I don't know a lot about this stuff. I'm relatively ignorant on both the MK Ultra affair and the various intelligence influence operations that were going on in broadly the militia movement. And so this is all very much like, oh, here's like a brick. Let me hit you in the face with it. Thanks, Cap. and I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. I'm not a big fan of the government Vegeta doing the default dance rap, .jpg.
I don't really understand what the brain rot was that you just said at the very end of that statement. But
I'll send it. I'll send it to you in DMs later.
Okay, great, wonderful. All right. Well, we are at the end. We are at the end of our 3 hours. Mike has been mind broken, and he needs to go. He needs to go cuddle. Go cuddle a lady. And Hudson has put in a shoddy day's work, just showing up for the last little bit. Stolen valor, really. It's like taking a taxi to the end of the marathon.
I'm just trying to keep up my
breaking the ribbon
streak.
Yep, that's true. Fair enough.
If you all get done, if you're all done here and you want some more quality MK Ultra, I just uploaded the titles of 2 papers that are worth reading. One is titled "The Duality of Technology: Rethinking the Concept of Technology in Organizations" by Wanda Orkowski in January of 1991. And the second is entitled "Identification in Organizations: An Examination of 4 Fundamental Questions." It was published in 1989. Both very good reading.
Excellent. Where did you post those?
I just tweeted them.
Okay, great. I will link those in the show description.
Yeah. They're not terribly relevant. There's just like they're sort of jazz accompaniment.
Yeah, but you mentioned it, and so this is going to go up on Spotify and YouTube, and so later. So
and also,
oh my God, we're gonna be shot at. We're gonna be shot at, man.
Welcome to your tape.
Yeah,
you don't get that reference.
I don't.
It's that stupid Netflix show 13 Reasons Why, where the girl kills herself.
Okay, I mean, you've already sold me on it.
Yeah,
I still don't know what it's about.
A girl kills herself, and then she leaves a bunch of recordings for the people who made her do it.
Okay, all right. And there's 13 of them.
Yep.
Okay, all right. Yeah. Well,
so I guess it's the 4 seasons.
I guess it's what's on the tin, right? So, all right, gentlemen. Nothing left to shill. Nothing left to shill. Last opportunity.
Drive Time Movie Night every Wednesday.
That's right.
Much more lighthearted than any of this.
It is.
Well, you weren't here. You weren't here for Cap and I discussing what we could watch that's related to both shows.
God. Watch the Randy Quaid. We could watch the Randy Quaid. What is it? Ruby Ridge. Miniseries.
Yeah, we'll watch that, and I'll just be shaking in the corner having war flashbacks. Yeah,
or the Waco documentary.
We're definitely not going to watch Linda Thompson's Waco documentary. All right, Sandbatch, you got anything coming up? Come on.
I have like an interminable stream coming out endlessly now. I sort of spring into action. No, I don't. But I just published something on Substack. I might publish some papers about what I think Stephen Miller is up to in the coming days. So if you want to check those out, they'll probably go up on my Substack.
Cool.
Other than that, follow me on Twitter.
Yep, follows all around, and also help Sandbatch buy bread. So
wait, no, hold on. I do want to plug. Okay. I do want to plug one more thing because he doesn't plug his own shit. You should go get T.R. Hudson's new book.
Oh yeah, you should buy T.R. Hudson's The Search for More Money. It is a short story collection. Perfect lengths if you're just slightly backed up on the turlet. Just keep that on the tank. Crank out a story when crank out a little read whenever you're defecating. It'll be perfect for you.
And when you're done, you can use the pages to wipe.
Yeah, that's right. And the link is in the description. So
this plug brought to you by Kindle Direct Publishing.
Yes. KDP.
I'm in the search for more money if I'm ever going to do this again. Good God. I'm doing this for free, man. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Up, Janny.
You got LMD Ultra. That's how it is.
There we go. So, that's my new, actually, that's going to be my new bio.
You got paid in an education. So, all right. With that, we are done. Thanks for joining us. We will see you next time.
We will not walk in fear one of another. We will not be driven by fear into an age of unreason if we dig deep in our history and our doctrine, and remember that we are not descended from fearful men, not from men who feared to write, to associate, to speak, and to defend the causes that were for the moment unpopular. We must not confuse dissent with disloyalty. Good night.